Mike. What's going on, everyone? How are you? How's it going? Good Mike Work Commentaries back at you with the, as promised, final commentary of the year, our year-end Q&A that's going to be combined tonight with a Monday Night Raw review for December 28th, 2020. And it's going to be a really fun, but also very, very bittersweet commentary and stream tonight because of the horrible news that we found out about the day after Christmas with the passing of Brodie Lee. He's going to be a very, very big part of this live stream tonight. Pretty much the entire thing is dedicated to him. We're going to go through a big tribute to Brodie Lee, talk a little bit about his passing and the circumstances there, and a little bit about his career and some of the things that AEW has planned for him this Wednesday, and just talk about the situation in general. I've been holding off comments on this aside from just Twitter, because I knew we had this big stream on the books for Monday, and this would be a perfect time, I think, to talk about and tribute John Huber, a.k.a. Brodie Lee, a.k.a. Luke Harper, and just a really, really shocking death, and one that, pretty much just gutted, every single wrestling fan, and especially all of his peers. I've never seen, there's always an outpouring of love and support for anybody that passes away, but I'm not sure if I can remember seeing this level of support, to this degree. How many people just went out of their way to talk about what a great and wonderful human being and man this guy was, and every single person loved him. So it's just heart-wrenching, and it's such a tragedy, and we're going to talk a lot about that tonight, as well as review the Monday Night Raw that just went off the air. As usual, you guys can hit me with your letter grades or your 1 through 10s in terms of Raw tonight. I watched it, got all the notes made, got all the results written down. We're going to talk about that, but my mind was kind of mentally checked out, because a lot of it was getting ready for this, and plus a lot of it has still been really thinking a lot about Brodie Lee and what a shocking death and what a shocking loss that is for us as wrestling fans. And it feels like, you know, as much as we are, I guess, like desensitized to how many deaths we have to deal with in wrestling, especially as wrestling fans, just the hundreds of them that we deal with, you know, every single year. It's been a while, I think, since, you know, a star in a major promotion died in the middle of the run. You know, you'd have to go back to someone like Eddie or Benoit or, you know, maybe someone like that was actually in the company, doing things in top angles, winning championships, and dying right in the middle of that. It has been a while. You know, a lot of people that we've lost have been people that have been out of the business for a while or older, you know, and we're going to be dedicating a portion of this commentary tonight to them as well, because we lost a lot of great people this year, including probably one of the most tragic, Brodie Lee and Shad Gaspard, easily the two most tragic deaths of the year. Horrible circumstances there, but also legends like Pat Patterson and Howard Finkel. So we're going to do our best to tribute all of them tonight as well. And that's pretty much going to be the rundown here. We're going to open up with the Brodie Lee stuff. Then we will transition into Monday Night Raw. And after that, we will jump into the Q&A and all of that. Like I said, I've got a great group of questions here that I pulled off of my email that you guys have been sending in throughout the past couple of weeks. So I've got all of those there, and I'm going to be answering all of the questions here in the chat, as many as I can. Any super chats that come in will be automatically answered, and I will try to answer as many as I can in the regular chat as well. And hopefully we'll hang out and make this a fun stream in spite of the tragic loss that we all suffered as wrestling fans this week. And it's just horrible. This year can't get over soon enough. You know what I mean? But as we always do on this channel, we're going to try our best to remain positive and try our best to have as much fun as we can tonight, despite everything. I've even opened up some cold ones tonight. My initial plan was to perhaps, since this is the last stream or last video that you're going to get out of me this year, I thought about opening up some champagne or opening up some of Jericho's bubbly. But you know what? There's nothing to celebrate. You know, this has been a shit-ass year between COVID and these deaths, you know, and Kobe Bryant and just all these just horrible things that are happening to us. Just in the world, and especially with the pandemic and everything. This is not a year that I want to look back on very fondly and remember fondly. Fuck this year, and let's get it over with as quick as possible. So no champagne, just hardcore beer tonight. I'm going to start out with a Fathom IPA from Ballast Point here locally, and once we start the Q&A later, I'll probably crack open some of Stone Cold's Broken Skull IPA. So if you have one tonight, crack it open. Cheers to you. And here's to a much, much better 2021. And thank you to everybody that is in here already in the chat waiting for me. I'm going to knock out a couple of these super chats first before we get into the Brodie Lee stuff. And I want to announce a couple of giveaways. We're going to be doing 2 giveaways in this episode that's going to benefit the family, and proceeds are going to go to the family of Brodie Lee. Plus, we're also going to be donating a portion of tonight's revenue to Brodie Lee. So stay tuned. In just a second, I'm going to tell you how to participate in that. But in the meantime, I want to say hello to Diet Water and Barry MK. Got some monkey wrenches here, so that's great. What are you talking about? I only watched the ending, so 10. Oh, okay. I got you, Barry. That's what you're giving the show tonight, D+. Yeah, the ending with Alexa Bliss was very interesting. George Morris, what's up, dude? Welcome back as always, and thanks for the $5. Hey, Greg, have a good and safe new year. Very sad about Luke Harper. My girlfriend can't wait for the chop shop scene from Cobra Kai's. Be safe. Yep, Cobra Kai's coming up in just a couple of days. Thank you very much for that, George Morris. I'm glad you're here. Chat site forums, good to see you as well. Excuse me. Big Dog, JL, Chad, Tigerzilla, Crush, Dennis, Life of Brandon, Sunny Man, Chad Jones, Mr. E, Real American, How Wheezy's in the house with a $2 super chat. How Whizzle in the house for this party. We are going to try to make it a party. That's where we're going to get all the crap, or not crap, but the sad shit over with early. We're going to open up here with Brodie Lee in just a second, and then hopefully we can make as much fun out of this commentary as we possibly can. Deshaun Robinson, I appreciate the $2 as well. It's Monday. You know what that means. True dat. Rest in peace, Brodie Lee. Shout out to Tom Phillips and Drew McIntyre, who both opened up Raw tonight with that line. Very cool. I meant to open up with that here as I went on, but forgot. And Divine Ricks, you were the first one to pop in with a $5 super chat. Appreciate that, or $4.99. I've never been so hurt over a wrestling death since Eddie Guerrero back in 2005. This is giving me Eddie Guerrero vibes. It absolutely is. Till now, Brodie Lee, this is such a big loss. And a lot of that is due to kind of like how both guys were similarly loved by, you know, the audience and their peers. You know, we always sung the praises of Luke Harper forever on this podcast, and why he wasn't, you know, given more opportunities, and what a waste, you know, of such a great talent in WWE. Then he gets to AEW, and, you know, while some folks were resistant to the Exalted One, I actually liked it and defended it and really got behind it near the end there, when, you know, his personality really started to come out, and being the elite segments and how funny all that was, and then the complete annihilation of Cody. Brodie was one of my favorite people on TV, and I said so in all of my Dynamite reviews throughout the past few months, how much I liked him and how much he grew on me as compared to when he first debuted, and I really wasn't sure how the Exalted One was going to work out. And he became one of my favorite people on TV. It's just such an enormous shame. But we might as well kind of segue into that, since that's what we are going to be getting into first, because I'm probably one of the only YouTubers who hasn't been up here yet to make any comments on this. And like I said, we found out on Saturday. I was up here on Saturday. We did not do a Winged Eagle podcast this week because it was the holidays, and I thought that there wasn't going to be enough wrestling news, and not too much was really going to be happening on the shows. Raw sucked. Wednesday night shows were just okay. SmackDown was fantastic, but again, not enough to fill a full podcast. So instead, we did a Patreon sponsored review where I was up here talking about my top 10 favorite tag teams of all time. And it was a really fun live stream. We had a great time. The audience was pretty good. And it was one of the more favorite, kind of live streams I've ever done on like an off topic like that. And I had to wrap things up and head off to work. And literally as soon as I was done with the stream and I got in the car and began driving, I saw Twitter notifications popping up on my phone, and all you guys were tagging me in this stuff. That AEW had sent out or put out a statement, which you see here on the screen, and was basically an obituary for John Huber. And that was in response to Brodie Lee's wife, Amanda, posting a long post and statement on Instagram, letting everybody know that he had passed away due to a non-COVID-19 related lung issue of some kind or condition. And apparently, there were many people in AEW were aware of this, and they chose to respect the family's privacy. I think on request of them, they just wanted to keep the illness as quiet as possible. I know Fightful Select reported on that today, that a lot of people in AEW did know that he was sick and did know that the situation was grave, but I don't know if anybody was expecting him just to pass away so suddenly like that, because even though many of them knew, according to the reports in AEW, it certainly looked like it was nothing but shock all throughout the entire wrestling community. And Luke Harper spent, many years, 7, 8 years, something like that, maybe even more, in WWE before even heading over to AEW. So he literally was friends with everybody in the business. He knew everybody. And that's another reason why this situation is so unique, because he is, right in the middle of his run, and he's actually kind of in between two companies, which means, he's got twice the amount of wrestlers that have known him or have had contact with him, matches with him, or interactions with him that spoke so highly and said, what a great person he was and what a great family man. And of all the people, to pass away, it's always got to be people like this. It reminds me of Owen Hart, him and Martha building their house, 2 young kids, life ahead of them, path is lit. They know what their plans are, what they're going to do. They're going to be comfortable and financially secure and safe for the rest of their lives, and they can just live and raise their family and live comfortably. And he dies, when they're moving in. I mean, it's just, life is not fair. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take your loved ones for granted, or take tomorrow for granted, because you might not wake up tomorrow. And this is proof of that. Brodie Lee is over 2 years younger than me. And just a lung condition, whatever that is. It's awful. I guess we'll get more details on the real, cause of death and things like that, but apparently is just a lung condition. It's just horrible, just to be ill like that and die. That must have been a really serious situation that he was dealing with, and maybe it explains a lot. Maybe he knew this prior to the match with Cody. Maybe they were originally going to keep the TNT title on him, and then this came up and he needed to take time off TV, because as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, the dog collar match is his last match, right? That was it. Bloody, violent brawl. And he lost the title shortly after winning it. And he hasn't been on TV since. So maybe they knew then, that don't really know. Either way, it's just horrible and it fucking sucks. But anyway, we're going to get into how we can support the family here on this channel, because I feel like that's the least we can do here. I'm sure that his family is going to be very well taken care of. I know Luke has, had a good job for several years. I'm sure they're not in any serious financial trouble, but anything we can do to help a wife and 2 kids that he has left behind, a wife and 2 kids that he loved very, very much, I am all for doing that. So what we're going to do is, during this entire Brodie Lee tribute portion of the stream here, any super chat that comes in, I want you guys to hashtag Chili's money. Just any super chat with the hashtag Chili's money. I'm going to add all those up. I'm going to match it, and that amount's going to be donated to whatever sort of fund is set up for Brodie Lee's family. As of right now, there is not anything set up. I have not seen a GoFundMe or anything like that. The only thing that they have done is over at Pro Wrestling Tees, they have announced that all of the sales from the Brodie Lee store. 100% of the proceeds are going to go to Brodie Lee's family, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute because I have 2 t-shirts to give away. And also CM Punk has announced that all of his merchandise for, however specific amount of time, all of the proceeds there will also go to Brodie Lee's family. So a lot of the other YouTubers and a lot of the wrestling community are kind of coming together here to try to do what we can to support the family and to show them how much we appreciated Brodie and his talents and what he gave us. So like I said, any super chat with the hashtag Chili's money will be matched and donated to either a GoFundMe of some kind to Brodie Lee. And if nothing comes up for that, and they don't set up any sort of fund, financial fund for the company or for the family, excuse me, what we're going to do instead is donate it to the American Lung Association that can help, benefit research for potentially whatever condition that Luke Harper had. So I figure that will be the next best thing. Whatever comes first, if they set up a fund me, hopefully they will, and we'll donate it to that. Otherwise, it'll go to the American Lung Association. So that's how you can help out in this stream if you'd like, or you can be a part of this giveaway. We're going to give away 2 t-shirts, and I'm going to put the shirt up here on the screen for you. This is the one you're going to get. This is from the Pro Wrestling Tees store. The Brodie Lee, just his name, Exalted One, badass looking shirt. And I've got 2 of these to give away. So there's 2 ways to enter. The largest super chat that we get on this entire stream, whatever that dollar amount is, will be donated, like I said, to whatever the FundMe or the GoFundMe or the American Lung Association. Plus, you'll receive this shirt in the mail. All you got to do is email me your address and your shirt size to goodmikework@gmail.com. So the largest one of the night, you will get this t-shirt and your monetary amount will be donated. The other way you can enter is just any super chat amount. Throughout the whole night here, however many people there are, I'm going to throw you all into a randomizer, pick out a name, that person will win the t-shirt as well. So that'll at least, give a monetary donation either to the family or to the American Lung Association, and we have supported Pro Wrestling Tees as well, purchasing 2 shirts, and that's another $50 that will go to the family of Brodie Lee. So I figured that's the least we can do here to try to do our part to help out and just to show it's kind of part of the grieving process. I mean, it's therapeutic in a way just to try to feel like reach out and just try to do something, for them, especially the wife. Amanda, according to, if Twitter is to be believed, and everything that we've seen from the wrestlers and everybody he worked with and stuff, he loved and adored Amanda to death. And she was very, very good and friendly and kind to all the other wrestlers that she met. I think it was Dax Hardwood of FTR, that said when he and his wife had experienced a miscarriage that John and Amanda would call them frequently. They sent him, gift baskets and, really went out of their way to make sure they were okay and if they needed anybody to talk to and things like that. So he's not only a really good-hearted man, but he's got a good-hearted wife, and they're just really good people all around. He's an animal lover. This dude's got dogs, cats, chickens, and he's his 2 favorite people in the world are his kids, who are Brodie and Nolan, 2 boys, and he loved him to death. That's what everybody was talking about. I mean, every other post, you just keep hitting refresh on Twitter, and it was just another John Huber post, and a lot of it was about his family. Even from the wrestlers that he worked with. Oh, when you brought your family to the show and how great they were and, how much, everybody just saw what a good dad and family man and husband you were and things like that. It's just heartbreaking to read all of that. And that first night there, my entire timeline, was just Brodie Lee. Not like most of it or some of it, like every single post. It was just an endless scroll of Brodie Lee, Brodie Lee, Brodie Lee, tributes from fans and especially wrestlers. The Bray Wyatt one was especially difficult to read because you could feel like all of his pain, like right there in the words, especially with the history that they've had and in the Wyatt family and stuff and them being really close. So you see all that and you read all that and it's just absolutely gut-wrenching that this happened and just quite unbelievable, especially for me. Like, I didn't even know he was sick. Like, I recognized that he wasn't on TV. I know we mentioned that in a couple of Winged Eagles. I was like, where's Brodie? I was kind of thinking that he would enter into a feud at some point with Hangman Page, and I don't know why. It's been several weeks now since the dog collar match. I think he's been in the back of my mind, but I haven't really been saying to myself, is something wrong with him? Is he injured? My thoughts haven't really gone beyond that. Lately on the Dark Order stuff, it's been Evil Uno kind of taking the lead there. And while I was aware of him being gone, I was completely oblivious that anything was wrong at all, which makes this even weirder, makes it even harder to swallow, because at least had we known something was wrong, maybe you could somewhat prepare your brain. But you talk about a punch in the teeth, reading that thing come up on Saturday, you had no idea. as far as I was concerned, Brodie was healthy and fine and was going to live another 40 years, 40, 50 years for all I knew. He's going to be able to see his kids go through school and go to college, get married, have kids of their own, and shit like that. And the fact that that's all out the window now is horrible and just an absolute tragedy. So go to the doctor, get yourself checked out, make sure there's nothing weird going on in your body, because 41 is entirely too young to pass away, especially with someone like him who really had his act together, as a man and as an adult and things like that. So it's a damn shame. I'm going to answer all of the super chats, the ones that have comments attached to the Chili's money here at the end of the segment, for those wondering. But yeah, just a horrible, horrible tragedy. WWE, along with AEW and Impact, all made statements on Brodie Lee. It was cool to see WWE talk so highly of him. They posted a few matches on their YouTube and their social media accounts. And I think Triple H, Stephanie, Vince all tweeted out, love and support to the family, and shared a fond memory of Luke Harper and all of that, which I thought was nice. And I read a couple of those, and I even made a tweet about it yesterday. And this portion of the stream is not going to be negative. I refuse to do that. But I think I should make it very clear that, if you're one of those people that went on WWE's John Huber tributes and commented something nasty or negative about the way he was used, or you guys didn't use him right, or, fuck you, I hope his ghost haunts you. I saw some really fucked up comments. I don't know what kind of fucked up reality one must live inside of to actually do that, and to take this fake fighting bullshit that we watch on a weekly basis and put that in front of real life. Someone who left a wife and kids behind, a great man, a great person with tons of friends, whose death basically just ripped a gaping hole into the entire wrestling world. And you're fucking worried about if he lost or won matches on Raw or SmackDown? Fuck you. Get a goddamn life, you grotesque fucking cretin, and grow up. That's ridiculous. That's the last thing that's even close to important right now, is something like that. This goes so far beyond that. I don't care how he was used in WWE in terms of his career. Yes, we're all regretful about how those morons use everybody, including Luke Harper. But this is not the time or place for that. And I couldn't believe how many of them were. You're always going to see a douchebag, always. But I saw a lot of them. You scroll down those WWE comments, it was like every other comment, sometimes more than that. And I'm like, is this all the fans can think of? Is this it? Amanda, Nolan, and Brodie, that they're secondary to whether this guy got pinned or not in a fake fight? Fans are awful. Wrestling fans continue to be the worst. But I did like that WWE and Impact and AEW, they all had really nice statements that they made. And AEW, being the Elite, by the way, released an episode today of a really nice, it was a tough watch. I think it was about 12 minutes long, hard to watch. But a nice, really long tribute to Brodie Lee and AEW. And Tony Khan have announced that this Wednesday, the entire Wednesday Night Dynamite is going to be a show tributed to Brodie Lee. Very similar probably to what WWE would do when, an Owen or an Eddie Guerrero or somebody like that passes away. It's their first experience with this. They already have, they're only a year-long company, and they have a former title holder that's deceased already. So this is going to be their first experience with that, their first 10-bell salute, their first tribute show. And I know that Tony and JR are used to doing those and stuff, but it should be nice. And the matches they've already announced are all going to be they're Dark Order heavy. I think a lot of Dark Order guys are involved in all of the matches I think they're announced so far. So it could be a clean sweep for the Dark Order. They'll probably win a lot of matches. Even Anna Jay and Tay Conti are teaming up and stuff. So I think the women and the men will hopefully all win their matches and do a nice little tribute to Brodie. There'll probably be a lot of emotional moments in the ring, I would assume. With a lot of members of the roster. So we'll see. But it's tough because it's so free. He's there. It's not like this is somebody that's been retired for 20 years or in their 60s or whatever. He's there. He's in the middle of it. He's, arguably in his prime, even though 41, is kind of the tail end of your career. You can still go beyond that. It's been proven. So he still had gas in the tank. He still had stuff to do. I was hoping he still had titles to win, and all this was just absolutely horrible. So it'll be interesting and very tough and probably emotional to watch Dynamite this week. And I really hope, I know this is kind of silly and kind of something off to the side, but I really hope this week that AEW breaks that 1 million ratings wise. I think that would be cool. I think they've only done it once or twice or something like that. But if they could get over that hump and drawing like a 1.2, you know, their biggest rating ever. I'm pretty sure Nitro did that. Nitro had a really solid rating, even though they were getting their ass whipped in the ratings. Brett and Benoit during the Owen tribute match pulled in a huge number, you know, so maybe something like this in AEW, you know, that can be something that they can always look back on fondly with Brodie Lee. He gave us our biggest rating, you know, a show completely dedicated to him, because honestly, I don't give a shit what they're going to do on NXT. I'm not even turning that on. It's going to be Dynamite the whole night. I'll catch NXT after, you know, so that's what's going to be happening there. And it's going to be tough to watch. So anyway, I'm sure you guys have all read all the, you know, the support and everything that was sent out to John Huber all over social media, and it was just really tough to read some of those, and especially some of the younger ones, like especially like somebody like Anna Jay, John Silver, and like really young people that he has worked with in the Dark Order. You know, he was a mentor to them. You know, I mean, it's devastating, you know, for them. It's devastating for everybody, especially the people that you've been up and down the road with. All the pictures that was the most heartbreaking part. You know, every single wrestler, every single person that knew him had a picture of him to share. You know, just to see his travels and everywhere he went. You know, it's just such a shame. You know, and he did, you know, even though his time in WWE was largely frustrating for a lot of us, he still accomplished a decent amount. He was a big part of that Wyatt family. And he was super good in the ring. I liked his busted looking look. You know, he was very Bruiser Brody. It was reminiscent of Bruiser Brody. It was first thing I thought of was like a Bruiser Brody and Mick Foley hybrid type of thing. First time I saw him, you know, and I remember it was back in 2014. I remember because I was driving around Carlsbad. I was driving right down the ocean, and I put on Brodie Lee on Talk is Jericho. It might have been 2015. I think it was 2015. And I remember it was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. I'm cruising. I got my windows down. The ocean is right there. And it wasn't when it first came out. I heard it like a couple of months later is when I finally turned it on. And I was just listening to it in my car, and I had never really heard Luke Harper speak before. You know what I mean? Aside from on TV. I knew a little bit of who he was in the independents and stuff, but never heard him in an environment like this. And to hear him talk and just how well-spoken he was and how he just sounded like a really normal dude. And some of the stories he would tell about his time in WWE and some of the experiences he had there were really kind of weird in terms of how he was treated and how WWE looked at him and compared to how he really is as a person. I just thought it was a really interesting listen. And I was like, man, you left it really liking Luke Harper. And I think he went on to go do a second Talk is Jericho episode after he left WWE, I think. So there's actually two of them out there, but the one that I listened to was way back when he was still Luke Harper in WWE, and it was just really good. And I was like, from then on, I really wanted to go out of my way to root for him. And of course, in the Wyatt family, they had some great moments. Who will forget the fucking confrontation with the Shield? You know, I think it was on Raw first, and they came to face in the ring. They were in the crowd. Or I think the Wyatt family was on the ramp, and Shield was in the crowd, and the fans were losing their shit. And they came together in the ring, and I think the Wyatt family powdered out, but they had a match at, I guess it would have been 2014, Elimination Chamber, which still to this day, in the last like 10 or so years, like in modern times of this weird type of wrestling that we get now, it's up there with one of the best matches we've ever seen. It really is good. And the fans marking out, this is awesome, before one punch was even thrown. You know, it was like a confrontation that WWE actually did well, because you had these 2-3-man units that were very dominant, and you knew if you can just put them on a collision course, it's going to be magic when they finally come together. And that was a great time. And Harper would break out on his own a little bit, have a lot of singles matches. I know he won the Intercontinental title for a short time, had a really good bloody, or brutal, I should say, like TLC match. Was it TLC? It was a match with Dolph Ziggler. I think he dropped the belt back to Ziggler. I think it was a TLC match. He had good matches, and why WWE never really could see the money in him, I'll never know. But as we know, it kind of went downhill for Harper. He had requested his release. They didn't give it to him, kind of held hostage for a bit. Then they brought him back as part of the Bludgeon Brothers to try to give him and Rowan another run here. But then there was an injury, and that was all kiboshed. And I think the whole thing, kind of culminated in the big Saudi Arabia trip, when they were all stranded over there. And there's that classic, now famous picture of Luke Harper just standing there like this, just looking right at the camera. You can see the seething frustration behind his eyes. Like, get me the hell out of this company. So when they finally did release him, I think they wanted him to debut on AEW a little bit earlier than he did, but when he finally did turn up, it was just good to see him there. A lot of fans had opinions and things like that about the Exalted One gimmick. I wasn't a huge fan of it at first, but I was giving it a chance. I said that every single week. I'm like, okay, it's weird. I like the Vince McMahon spoof stuff. That was funny. As long as they don't harp on that and make that become the entire identity of the Dark Order, I'm cool with the little pot shots here and there, no problem. But it took me a while to kind of get behind him. It wasn't until the Being the Elite stuff started and you started really seeing him, yelling at John Silver and some of the funny shit they were doing backstage and stuff that I really started getting behind and loving the work he was doing as the Exalted One and was 1,000,000% behind him. So, and when he annihilated Cody, I marked out, man. I was thrilled. I love Cody, but, I really thought that was a good statement for him to make. My only problem with it was that he dropped it back to Cody so quickly, and maybe his illness had a little bit to do with that. But I remember bitching about it a little bit, last month when I was like, oh man, Cody, he had to win the belt back after that awesome. I mean, the match was good. The dog collar match was great match. It's just the outcome. I kind of wanted to see Brodie go on a run, but maybe now we see why that didn't happen. Either way, he had a hell of a career. He touched everybody he came into contact with, interacted with, had a match with. Never heard anybody, even prior to his death, you've never heard anybody have any sort of negative Brodie Lee story. Oh, he was a dickhead to me backstage, or he bullied me, or he's an asshole, or, nothing like that. Everybody said he is literally the greatest guy, in the world. He is the modern day Mick Foley. Imagine if Mick Foley would have passed away when around the time Beyond the Mat came out. That kind of reminds me of this. He had 2 young kids, a wife that he loved very much. Family seemed to be priority first with him, and he dies. Extremely unfair. So our condolences, huge condolences, of course, go out to John Huber's family, his wife and his kids and his extended family and all of his friends, WWE and WCW, or I'm sorry, WWE and AEW. They're all in a lot of pain and they're all in mourning, and it was probably difficult for some of the Raw people to go out and have matches tonight, a lot of them and stuff. So, we'll talk about that here in a minute. We'll talk about what WWE did with their graphic, and no 10-bell salute for Brodie Lee tonight on Monday Night Raw, which I'm on the surface, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the graphic and, a couple of tributes from Tom Phillips and Drew McIntyre here and there. I'm totally fine with the non-10-bell salute, but the one thing I will say about that, I think it could have been nice and maybe a little bit could be used as kind of as like a coping mechanism for the talent. In terms of what the fans want or what WWE morally should or shouldn't do, I really don't care. I think it would have been good for the talent to be up there on the stage and do the 10-bell for Luke Harper, because that could have been special for them, maybe help them deal with it a little bit more. So that's my only regret on the no 10-bell salute. That is, I think it might have been good for the talent. That's all. But otherwise, they at least they didn't ignore it or anything like that. They acknowledged his death and made a couple little on-camera tributes to him too, which was nice. At least we got that. But in the end, Brodie Lee has left us at age 41. That's really sad. And like I said, head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com, his store. I put the link in the description if you want to pick up a shirt. All proceeds go to the family. All the super chats tonight with hashtag Chili's money will be matched by me and donated either to whatever fund is set up for his family or the American Lung Association in the event that a fund is not set up. And I also have 2 giveaways. The largest super chat of the night will receive the Brodie Lee t-shirt, and your dollar amount super chat will be donated to the family as well. And all the other super chats are going to be entered into a drawing, and you will win the other shirt. So keep that in mind for tonight, and that's going to be what we're going to try to do to support the family in some way. But that's going to wrap it up for the Brodie Lee segment of this. Throughout the night, like I said, this entire live stream is kind of dedicated to him. So let's not make this the complete end of the Brodie Lee discussion. Throughout the night, no matter what we're talking about, share your Brodie Lee stories. If you have a favorite match, a favorite moment, maybe you've met him, something like that, you've got a story, for us. So if you have any memories or favorite, moments or matches from his career that you want to share, we'll read through them all night. So, like I said, that's the least we can do to honor his memory. It's such a shame. So anyway, rest in peace to John Huber. Hope we did our best here to try to honor his life and career as best we could, and we'll try to continue to do that as we go throughout the as we go throughout the stream here. But let's transition now and get into tonight's Monday Night Raw, so then we can start getting into the Q&A segment of this, because that should be really fun later on, and I'll be answering questions throughout the chat here, and I've got a bunch dumped into a document here from my email that we'll be going through as well. Some really interesting random questions, and I just wrote them down, so a lot of them are going to be freestyled. As I go through them, I'm just going to kind of read them and answer them as I go. But according to what I have written down, I think I'll be able to do that. So that'll come later. But first, why don't we get into Monday Night Raw from tonight? Like I said, the December 28th edition of Monday Night Raw. I didn't catch a lot of the grades. Most of you guys were giving it C's and D's. So Monday Night Raw was not that good tonight, although the ending was very good. And we had some big news with the Money in the Bank briefcase being returned to The Miz. I couldn't believe they did that. I'm a little bit bummed out about that. But I think it could also lead to potentially some fun stuff too. So we'll see. We'll see. Let's go up to some of these super chats and answer a couple of them before we get into this, because I know some were coming in. I've got you. I got all these. George, let me see here. Stone Cold 10X, thanks for the $5, dude. I was on my way home from the airport when my wife texted me about his death. God bless John Huber. Chili's money. That's right, man. I remember, I think you told me I think you said you were at the airport during the stream that night. We did the top 10 tag teams. I think I remember you saying that. That's a shame. All right, Dan, thank you for the donation to Huber's family. Dennis Summer, I'm sorry, I lost you. Oh, shit. It kind of refreshed and went all the way back down to the bottom. Let me get back up to where it was. Dennis somebody, I just missed you. There you are. Dennis Samaro, thank you very much for the 5. JJ Leg as well. Rest easy, Brodie. Chili's money. Michael Cuomo, thanks for the 5. I think his best WWE match was the IC ladder match with Dolph. Yeah. And best AEW match was the dog collar match. Easily. Yeah, I think you might be right there. I mean, unless you incorporate, the Shield Wyatt stuff and you include that, in the 6-man stuff, but singles, for sure. Those are the two that stand out to me anyway. And he should have had more. He really should have. He should have had more matches and moments like that, especially in WWE. 2 out of 10 for Monday Night Raw. Sounds about right. Deshaun Robinson, thank you so much as well for the donation. I'm going to miss the John Silver and Brodie Lee dynamic. I am too. I loved when Brodie snapped. My stomach would be in knots. It was great. It was great. Hashtag Chili's money. Yeah, especially when he would just yell at him and throw shit at him. Oh my God. And I felt bad for John Silver. He just, he put on Twitter, I think he said it was the worst day of his life, because you got to imagine how, kind of young he is and, what kind of knowledge Brodie was probably able to pass on to him the short time they were together and stuff. And the chemistry they had was pretty good. And the way he was being treated was just hysterical. How Weezy, appreciate the donation as well from you. Same with you, Off Leather Wings. Dynamite this Wednesday was booked by Brodie's son. All his favorite wrestlers team up. Oh, I didn't know that. Now, I did hear about the, I didn't mention this in the Brodie thing. They did some really nice stuff on AEW Dark as well for Brodie. They brought his kid in the ring and he defeated Kenny Omega for the AEW title and even made him an honorary member of the Dark Order or something like that, that took place. So, I guess they've known they had the family there to, give their kids, something to be happy about or to take back to dad or get a picture or whatever that they needed there. But apparently everybody there was pretty aware that he was not doing well. I think that was a reason for all that. So that was a very nice gesture, for them to, do that stuff with the family. And I think the family is going to be very well taken care of and honored by AEW. I think AEW is going to do whatever they can to make sure that they're taken care of. And I think they'll do right by the family. Just seems like the type of people they are. Even Tony Khan seems to be very, very taken back by this. This is not something that he's really dealt with that often, and now that he's a promoter, it's going to be something that he's going to probably deal with again. So I'm sure that AEW will take care of them, no doubt, but we're still going to do what we can do to help here on this channel as well. Was that any more there? Did I get them all? There's another one from Stone Cold. Appreciate it. His feud with Orton was good also. Yeah, that's right. Because when, hashtag Chili's money, because when he joined up with, Orton joined up with the Wyatt family, wasn't it Harper that didn't trust him, right? And he was like, I don't fucking trust him. And then finally when Randy, turned on him, it was like, told you so kind of thing. They had great matches because they're both good. All their matches were good. They wrestled a bunch of times too on Raw. I'm almost certain of it. Spectra, thanks for the 5 as well. Hey, Greg, can't watch long. Sad to hear about Brodie Lee. How was Raw? Did Bray return, or is he still selling the burning? Raw was okay. The ending was interesting. Bray did not return yet, but Alexa Bliss demanded that Randy Orton set her on fire, which we'll talk about here in a little while. And she did speculate, though, that he could return next week, and I think that that's likely. They got a big show set up for next week on January 4th, and it's going to be all the legends there, and one of those legends happens to be Bray Wyatt's father, IRS. I think it would be really cool if maybe Bray attacked him when he returned or something. I don't know. Might be pretty cool. We'll see. If he returns next week, he should have some sort of a new look. And other than that, that's all we really got out of Raw. And I'm sorry you can't stay long tonight, but thanks for popping in and being here and showing support. Zane G, appreciate the buck. You got WCW trading cards on the way to you. How Weezy, thank you for the 5. I was supposed to meet him back in June, but COVID messed that up. Hashtag Chili's money. Oh, man. Yeah, that sucks you weren't able to meet him. Tigerzilla Gamer, thanks for the 5 as well. The stuff he could do for someone his size was incredible. Also, thank you, Greg, for making my 2020 more entertaining. Hashtag Chili's money. Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, 2020 sucked if I was able to help at all. I'm honored. All right, so that knocks out the chats, at least for right now. We'll get back to those later. I want to move in, like I said, to the Raw results, so we can start having fun with the Q&A. Pretty decent audience in here right now, not bad. Please do me a favor, smash that thumbs up and subscribe if you've not yet already. The next time you will get me, because it's going to be a big, busy week, is not going to be till Saturday. We'll resume the Wing to Go podcast schedule on Saturday. Should have a big broadcast or big stream and podcast to talk about, because Wednesday night's going to be emotional. Wednesday night's going to be big for AEW. I wish I could come up here prior to Saturday, but, you know, Thursday's New Year's Eve. Provided they don't shut us down again, I'm working. And then, of course, you know, Friday's SmackDown and everything. So I'm probably just going to be waiting until Saturday to give them all my comments on what we see on Wednesday for AEW Dynamite. So I'm sorry I can't be up here that night for a stream. That would be really fun. But I hope you guys enjoy it. And I'll be watching and I'll be tweeting. And it's going to be rough. Anyway, Monday Night Raw tonight, December 28th, 2020, opened up with a Brodie or Luke Harper, John Huber graphic. And like I said earlier, no 10-bell salute. I'm okay with that. It's a pick my battles situation to me. Like I said, there's so much bigger issues at hand here, especially with a family losing a husband and a father, and all that stuff is much more important than what those assholes in WWE should or should not do. But at least the graphic came up, and they opened up the show with Tom Phillips welcoming us to Monday Night Raw, and he says, "It's Monday. You know what that means." And I was like, "Thank you for that, Tom. I needed that." And Drew McIntyre came out to open up the show and cut a promo, and he immediately said the same thing. So right off the bat, we get 2 tributes to Brodie Lee, which was really awesome. If you don't know what that's a reference to, if you follow him on Twitter for just years, he tweets the same thing every day. It's Monday, you know what that means. It's Tuesday, you know what that means. It's all he ever tweeted. And it was fun to watch that, because that way, whenever he turned up, he could say, I told you it was going to be a big day. So nice to see those tributes tonight, you know, as subtle as they were. And sometimes with me, I appreciate subtle tributes more, you know, than big, elaborate production tributes. You know, this was kind of nice. The talent, you know, and the announcers just, you know, paying tribute to him. It's what they should do. But after Drew says that, he thanks the fans. He thanks the fans for believing in him and all that shit and a few things. And basically says that next week on the big January 4th Legends show that kicks off 2020, he's going to be defending the WWE title against the winner of a match that was announced earlier on in the day, I think, between Keith Lee and Sheamus. So Keith Lee and Sheamus would face one-on-one, and the winner of that will get the title shot against Drew on the 4th, which will be next Monday. And Sheamus and Keith Lee both come out after that. They start jaw-jacking with each other. They're arguing. And then McIntyre says, why don't you? I just want to find out who's going to win this right now. Let's get a referee down here and just do it here. We're all here. Might as well. And that's when Sheamus hits Keith Lee with a cheap bro kick. And then they go to commercial. They come back. The match has started. And Drew McIntyre is sitting in on commentary. And in the end, we just get Keith Lee beating Sheamus. It was a good match. Like, I think Sheamus is a pretty good, like, for big beefy guys, you know, big pork chop guys, Sheamus actually worked pretty well with Keith Lee. I thought the match was okay. Keith Lee in the end did win with a spirit bomb, beat Sheamus pretty much clean, and will now face Drew McIntyre next week on Raw. So I'm not too enamored with this idea. I love Keith Lee. I just think he should have never left NXT. I am not feeling him the way I felt him in NXT. And that's not his fault. It's all 100 million zillion % WWE's fault, because he can be good and he can have great matches and he can be believable and credible and he can be a champion. He proved all that shit in NXT, but on the main roster, it's a completely different story, and I feel like the magic is gone. He went from being such a dominant two-championship badass in NXT to not much so far on the main roster, and that's 100% to do with WWE having no fucking idea what to do with him, and it's frustrating. So now they've been teasing a little bit that maybe something could be going on with him. He's been approaching Sheamus backstage every week, accusing him of eventually going to turn on his friend, and it's kind of made the fans think a little bit that maybe he's going to be the one to turn in the end. And I like that idea, and I think that's possible, and now that you have this match set for next week, it does set you up with some possibilities there, because they've already wrestled, correct me if I'm wrong, a couple of times on Raw, right? When Lee came in, didn't they have a couple of babyface matches together? And most of Keith Lee's matches, I'd say 75 to 80% of them have ended in a DQ or a countout. So I feel like next week could be another situation there where if it remains a babyface match, they're going to have no, I guess they're just going to do Drew could beat him. It wouldn't be a burial whatsoever. It's not a burial to lose to WWE champion at all. But I worry that they can do another kind of DQ finish there, or Sheamus can get involved. You know, Sheamus could cause a finish. So they're either going to do a DQ or the finish will not be clean. You know, Sheamus could jump in and smack Keith Lee in the face by accident, or help Drew McIntyre win, and then Drew's pissed or whatever. Or they could swerve us, have Keith Lee turn heel, or maybe he loses the match and then snaps and turns on Drew at the end. And whatever this is and whatever goes on here, I think it should lead to whoever Drew faces at the Royal Rumble. Somebody also mentioned Braun Strowman potentially being a wild card here. He could turn up and return next week and attack Drew, attack Keith Lee, attack all three of them, potentially leading to a fatal four-way at the Royal Rumble, which, like I said, McIntyre, I believe is going to keep the title until WrestleMania. So whoever he faces between now and WrestleMania, he's got to beat. So that's a pretty big fatal four-way. I don't know if I want to see Drew and Sheamus one-on-one at the Rumble. You know the outcome. Sheamus isn't going to beat him for the title. You know, I don't know if I want to see Drew and Keith Lee either, if we're just going to see it next week on Raw, unless Keith Lee potentially turns heel. Then the match could have a little bit more interest, but they're not going to do that again. And Strowman could come back. And Strowman, I think, was supposed to be the opponent for McIntyre at TLC. He got hurt. He could come back, be the opponent for McIntyre at the Rumble instead, or they do the four-way. And I wouldn't mind that. Or the triple threat, you know, if Strowman's not involved. But I think a four-way there would be okay. With those guys, I think they could find a way to make it interesting, and it would be really easy for Drew to retain. He can just pin Sheamus, you know, and then Lee doesn't have to take the pin, Strowman doesn't have to take the pin, and Drew will be on his way to WrestleMania to face either the winner of the Rumble or the Chamber. Maybe that's what they do. And if you guys have any other ideas of where that could go, let me know, you know, in terms of that. But next week, I certainly don't see a title change at all in that match, but I do think something could happen in terms of either a heel turn, a return, a run-in, a schmozzy finish, something like that. Something's going to set up Royal Rumble, I would think, because what else do you do in that situation? Up next, we had The Miz taking on Grand Metalik, and Miz came out there with a really tore back and rugged-looking John Morrison. He looked all busted and, you know, weathered for some reason. He comes out there. They've been really playing up the fact that Miz has had a horrible week. You know, I think they lost last week, and of course he lost the Money in the Bank briefcase at TLC, and he's just been a disheveled mess. And here he got caught with a quick pin against Grand Metalik here as well, which is great because they should be doing a lot more with Grand Metalik because he's the best high flyer they fucking got. So he wins. Miz just looks, you know, distraught. It feels like he could be on the verge of snapping a little bit. And they've really been kind of telegraphing the fact that he's going to get fed up with fucking Morrison and wind up turning on him at some point. Now, later on in the night, like 5 or 6 segments later, way late, right near the end of the show, they show Miz and Morrison backstage. They're sitting on the steps or something, and they're approached by Adam Pearce. And he basically was like, look, as much as I don't want to do this, Morrison was the one that cashed in the briefcase, and it specifically states in the rules that it must be the Money in the Bank briefcase holder to do the cashing in. So that means Miz, he's got the briefcase in his hand. Here you go. And he gives the Miz the fucking Money in the briefcase back, which we had a feeling they would do because they brought it up last week. And if they're going to bring that up, much like Miz wanting the briefcase with Otis, if they're going to start that, they're obviously going to do it. So once Miz said, I want the briefcase back, or they made it known that he didn't cash it in, you're like, ah, shit. he's going to get it back, isn't he? And sure enough, he's got the briefcase back. I still think that puts him in the same position it did before, with who's he going to cash in on? He's not cashing on McIntyre right now ahead of WrestleMania. If Miz goes in to WrestleMania as WWE champion, I'm turning my YouTube channel into a Justin Bieber tribute channel. All Bieber, all the time. I'm going to play his music in the background. I'm going to dance in tighty whities all over this stream if that fucking happens. So it better not. Because I'll get some copyright stuff if I play that music, won't I? Shit. So yeah, I don't want my channel to die. So that better not happen. So he's back in the same position. The only thing I can think of now is that maybe they prolong this thing with Morrison a little bit, because once he got the briefcase back, they were dancing on the steps a little bit. So maybe he goes to cash it in again, and Morrison fucks up again, and he loses the briefcase a second time. Miz is making some serious history here. And I really hope they don't do it again, where they do something the next time where there's some sort of little stip, or a little loophole where he gets it back again and then he potentially loses the briefcase like 3 times. It might be funny to watch that, but might get a little bit ridiculous after a while as well. So I think he should still not cash it in, and maybe Morrison does something to screw up, and that's when Miz snaps, turns on him, and then they can feud. But again, that feud might be slightly interesting, but where's it really going to go after that? I don't know. Is Miz really going to change his character that much? Probably not. Doesn't feel like he's got it in him, After that, we had Elias and Riker backstage. Elias is strumming his guitar, and AJ must have been in the other room or whatever. He comes in the door, and he's like, turn this shit off. You're not Johnny Cash. I'm trying to concentrate, or whatever the fuck. He's got Omos with him, so I just love that so far Elias is like backup. Hasn't looked like that great. He hasn't really stopped anybody from interrupting him here. Even in the locker room, he can't stop anybody from interrupting him. Maybe that's the joke here. He's supposed to be, this music guard or this protector for Elias, and so far he ain't done shit except to win a match last week. So then AJ and Omos comes in. It would have been fun to watch Omos tear Jackson's head off and eat it. But he didn't do shit. He just told him to shut off the shit or whatever, and then they're bitching back and forth. AJ proposes a match, and we would get that match later on in the night, Elias and AJ Styles, which is a good match for Elias to have, working with AJ. Not bad. I like Elias. I wish they'd do more with him. After that, we had Shayna Baszler taking on Dana Brooke. Boy, it's a good thing Shayna Baszler escaped this match with her life. Just seriously outmatched here by Dana Brooke. Obviously, I'm kidding, but you know what? This is a really good match. I thought Dana looked pretty good in here. Put up a good fight. Mandy was out there helping her out a little bit. Shayna was by herself. I don't think Nia Jax was out there. She had to face Charlotte later on. So Shayna was on her own. She kind of fought off Mandy as well, kind of did the arm stomp thing, or tried to do that on the steel steps to her. And then during all the confusion, I think Dana Brooke, she misses a top rope move of some kind and then just eats a knee strike right into the Kirifuda clutch. And that was the end of her. And then after the match, Shayna comes back in the ring and locks the clutch on Mandy as well. So Shayna just beat the shit out of the two of them. After that was the big advertised Alexa Bliss Playground segment, and we saw the Playground, of course, debut last week, where she's on the swing set and shit, and she's supposed to have Randy Orton on as a guest. So she's on there, she's swinging on the swing, and she announces Randy Orton or whatever, and we hear his music, but then he doesn't come out. We see him turn up on the Firefly Funhouse instead. He enters the house, and he starts tearing shit up. He murders Ramblin' Rabbit, and he starts knocking shit over, and Alexa is just getting madder as she's watching this. Madder and madder. And then she yells at him to stop and actually challenges him to come out and face her in the ring. And during her promo there, that's kind of when she alluded to the fact that Bray Wyatt could return. She said, where is he? He could turn up next week. Maybe he'll be here next week. Maybe that's what he's waiting for. He wants to meet his favorite wrestler, Hulk Hogan. He's been saying his prayers and taking his vitamins. And then she kind of says, I don't want to know who he prays to. I kind of like that line. And that was very good. So she got very pissed at Randy for tearing up the funhouse and demanded that he faces her in the ring, I suppose, for a match later on in the night, which would wind up being the main event. And actually, I had that reversed. I think Playground came before Elias. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It didn't. Elias is up next. My bad. Elias versus AJ Styles is up next. Of course, we had the backstage segment earlier on where this was all set up. Decent match here. In the end, AJ Styles won with a phenomenal forearm. And not much to say there. Jackson wasn't much of an issue there. And AJ is, the better star. I'm glad that they didn't do any silly finish in that one either. That should have just been a straight up match that AJ won clean, and he pretty much did. Oh my God. We had more Ricochet versus Ali. matches, or Ricochet versus Retribution matches tonight. Ricochet versus Ali this time. I guess he's trying to tear through the entire Retribution faction, and so far he's not doing so good. Lots of interference, of course, from Retribution. They're all out there. Poor Ricochet's by himself. There was a big spot that he did with T-Bar. I guess they were up on the ropes or the turnbuckle or something, and Ricochet hit him with like a DDT on the apron, but they kind of missed, and they both fell awkwardly. T-Bar looked like he got the worst of that, falling on his head, but Ricochet, you know, he took an unprotected bump as well, and they nearly made 2020 a lot worse with that spot. They need to be careful. But in the end, Ali was able to capitalize on all of the interference and lock Ricochet into his clutch or his finisher or whatever, and he passes out for the win. Gets on the mic. Of course, last week, I think he demanded that Ricochet give him an answer as to whether or not he's going to join Retribution. This week, gets on the mic and demands to know, and Ricochet with a very cheesy and stupid response and says, okay, I will not join, and then hits him with like a double knee move and gets out of the ring. Just fucking stupid. They played a clip of him on, what is it, Raw Talk or Talking? Does Raw have one? Or is it just Talking Smack? I think it's got to be Raw Talk. Anyway, he's on there talking about his career and his issues with Retribution and how he's not sure and his confidence is a little bit shaken. If you ask me, his biggest problem is wearing that hat. That's why he's not getting pushed. Don't wear that hat, dude. After that, we had Charlotte taking on Nia Jax. Like I said, Nia Jax was noticeably absent from her partner's match earlier on. This match was okay. I'm not a big Nia Jax fan in the ring, to be honest. The finish saw Charlotte hooking the figure eight on Nia Jax, but Baszler just scoots right in the ring. She sees that Nia is done, hooks the Kurafita clutch onto Charlotte, causing Nia Jax to get DQ'd, and Charlotte picks up the win there via disqualification. I guess they're defending the titles. Help me out. They're defending the titles against Bayley and Bianca, correct? I kind of don't want them to do the reluctant tag team partner thing. I really don't like that. Sometimes it's okay. Probably the only time I've really liked it was when it was the Bar, like Sheamus and Cesaro, like how they just slowly kind of came together. Sometimes it can be done right, but for the most part, whenever they do it, it's just dumb. It's short-lived. I have no interest in seeing Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax get back to the tag team titles, although it doesn't seem like their alliance is completely over as well. I don't want to see them get back, and I don't want to see them do the same thing with Bianca Belair and Bayley. Yeah, it would put gold around Bianca's waist, but is it worth it to do a dumb angle like that? I'm just really not interested in seeing that if that's the case, but we'll see what Charlotte and Asuka do as a team going forward, but you got to think they will be involved with each other in some way. They got to be at WrestleMania, and I'm really hoping that Rhea Ripley can get involved in that. I would love to see Ripley win the Rumble or preferably the Chamber. I think she's better suited for the Chamber. She's a badass, kind of heavy metal chick with, dark makeup and stuff. So she just feels like it's a better environment for her, to just completely annihilate everybody. And that would be a great way for her to earn another shot. Let Bianca Belair or somebody else win the Rumble and have Rhea Ripley win the Chamber, and then maybe go into WrestleMania to face maybe Charlotte. I think Charlotte and Asuka might face for the title at the Royal Rumble. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So if it's Charlotte and Asuka, maybe Charlotte can... maybe they could do that. Maybe Charlotte could win the title. Rhea could win the Rumble, challenge Charlotte just like Charlotte challenged her last year, and then maybe Asuka could win the Chamber or something. Well, that might not work if a Raw person wins the Rumble. But I think it would be cool if you did do a three-way as well. Maybe you could do Charlotte, Asuka, and Rhea Ripley. But if I had my choice, I'd just do a Charlotte-Ripley rematch and have Ripley win. Might be the only way to save Ripley at this point. It really felt like she lost a lot of momentum after WrestleMania and after COVID and everything. So for her to come onto the main roster now and actually do something instead of being wasted like Keith Lee or a lot of other people that come up, she can actually come up and make a statement and make a big splash, and win something and go into a rematch with Charlotte, and this time come out on top. I think it would be great. It wouldn't hurt Charlotte at all. Her legacy can more than afford not only one loss like this, but probably a few. And it would be a great building block for Rhea Ripley on the main roster. So that's kind of what I'm hoping they do. If Ripley does in fact come up, maybe she puts Raquel Gonzalez over on the way out, and then Raquel can go on to face Io Shirai and potentially be the champion over there. And now we got Rhea on the main roster being a contender here. I think that would be best for everyone. After that, backstage segment with Angel Garza. He's got a rose. It's not for Charlie, even though he's being interviewed by her. She says, who's it's for? Who's it's for? And then R-Truth runs up and interferes, and he's being chased by the jobbers, and he knocks over Garza, and the rose is destroyed, and he seems sad and what the fuck ever. After that, we had a big 8-man tag. Jeff Hardy, Riddle, and the New Day taking on the Hurt Business. More silly business pitches from Riddle backstage at Gorilla prior to the match. Took an hour and a half for all these guys to make their entrances anyway. Plus, they had a commercial in there. Action-packed, match, typical 8-man tag that you would see from teams like this. And in the end, Lashley continues to roll, locks Jeff Hardy in the Hurt Lock again, and Hardy's got to tap out. So Bobby Lashley continues to kick ass. I don't know, or I'm thinking that they're still kind of building in that direction of a Bobby Lashley and Matt Riddle U.S. title match. Don't know if they'll announce that for next week's Raw or maybe even have it at the Rumble or something like that. As much as I like Matt Riddle based on what he's doing right now with the silliness type of gimmick, it's kind of like what they're doing with him right now, and that's fine. I think that can change, and he can still be a champion in the company. I can almost see where it's going. At some point, you can see Riddle his character is gonna go through some sort of a change. Like, I'm sick and tired of being a funny guy. I'm sick and tired of coming out here and trying to entertain or do what WWE wants me to do and be entertaining. I need to, kick ass like only I know I can. I can almost see that coming like down the road for him. So in terms of right now, if he does wind up getting in the ring with Bobby Lashley for the U.S. title, I want Lashley to beat him 100%. I just still want Lashley to continue to roll, and he had a big string of victories here lately, especially, locking every person he sees in the Hurt Lock and putting them out. So I just want to see him continue to roll. And he entered himself, by the way, as Hurt Business came out. He announced his entry for the Royal Rumble this year, so he will be in the Rumble. But I think, as much as I love him, I think almost WrestleMania is too early. I just want to see him be built for a while. That's all. I mean, is that so wrong? I've given this scenario out. I've laid this out several times in recent podcasts, but I just want to see him go undefeated until SummerSlam. I want him to beat every single person that he faces for that U.S. title between now and SummerSlam and go on a really long run and get a title shot at SummerSlam. I think that would be awesome. Get a title shot against potentially Brock. What if Brock comes back and wins the title in the summer? And then he faces Lashley and we finally get that match that we've been waiting for. A lot of people would probably freak out if Brock won the belt back, but if it's done in a way that the point is to put Lashley over in the end, then I'm totally fine with it. So it's kind of like a couple of years ago when he won the belt at Money in the Bank and everybody's like, holy shit. And then Seth went and beat him again for it at SummerSlam. So if they do something like that with Lashley, I'd be all for it. Or, maybe you don't even need a title, the world title on the line. Maybe it's a United States title shot for Brock. It could go that way too. Why can't Brock compete for the U.S. title? Well, where does it say in his contract that he can't do that? So maybe something like that. But I think SummerSlam would be a good landing point for Brock and Lashley, because I think if they tried to do it at WrestleMania, it's not enough time, because Brock's been off TV. It would be his first match back, and then he'd be going right into the ring again to lose to Lashley. I think Brock has to come back, be here for a little while, kill a couple of people before running into Lashley, where Lashley potentially beats him. I think that's the better way to do it. So I think WrestleMania is early, but I think SummerSlam is perfect for anything they have planned for Bobby Lashley. So continue to roll Bob Lashley in your awesome suits with the awesome Hurt Business. Love those guys. After that was when they gave the Money in the Bank briefcase back to The Miz. That made me barf. And then finally, we get the main event, Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton segment. Alexa has challenged Randy Orton earlier on in the night to meet her in the ring. She was a little playful, kindergarten Alexa Bliss in the playground, but now she's a little bit more angry Alexa Bliss. She comes out there, calls out Randy Orton, and he wants to know where the Fiend is. And she says, it's not about him, it's about me. And she goes on the outside of the ring and grabs a big box, a wrapped up present, brings it in the ring, opens it up. It's a gas can and some matches. And she goes up to Randy Orton and gives it to him and says, I want you to do to me what you did to him. And then she just lays down in the ring, offering herself up to Randy Orton, every man's dream, right? And but this time she's expecting him to pour gasoline on her and light her on fire. He hesitates a little bit. She gets frustrated, starts yelling at him, do it, Randy, do it, Randy. And he says, the thing is, you don't think I'll do it, do you? But I will. So he keeps threatening to do it. Finally, she just gets pissed and grabs the gas can and just starts pouring the gas all over her head. First, she draws a circle, by the way. She draws like a trail from Randy, trail of gasoline from Randy into the middle of the ring, draws a big circle, stands in the circle, and then pours the gas all over herself and is begging Randy to light it. And right when it looks like he's about to do it, that's when the light starts going out, and the Fiend is teased, and the show just goes off the air. So we did not get a Little Miss Crisp on this episode of Raw, which is good. But Randy Orton threatened to do it and said that she can join the Fiend if she so chooses, and she really seemed like she wanted to off herself there. And that girl is crazy. I hope she never catches her husband doing something wrong, because if she's willing to burn herself up, she's nuts. But again, though, more fantastic work by Alexa Bliss in both segments. You know, she's kind of different in both. I like how they've tweaked up her music, too. I think that's a really good touch. I don't know how long they've been doing that, but tonight was the first night I noticed it, how they had the music tweaked up a little bit there, a little darker, kind of fiendish version of her Alexa Bliss song, which I really liked. And she's just spectacular. She's so good in this role. It fits her like a goddamn glove. And I would have never thought that, if this concept would have been conceived to me on paper, and I read it. Well, Alexa Bliss joining the Fiend, get the fuck out of here. I wouldn't even give it a second thought. But now seeing it, play out, it's like, wow, she's great. She's great. So we'll see next week. Like I said, I think there's a really good chance that the Fiend will return, because something's probably got to be set up by the time they get to Royal Rumble. And if they're already stacking up this January 4th Raw as it is, might as well go all the way with it and have the Fiend come back too. Can't remember the last time Raw fell on January 4th other than 2010. 11 years ago when Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had the big handshake. That was also the same night that TNA debuted on Monday night. It's the same night of the finger poke of doom, same night as Wrestle Kingdom. January 4th is always just a big day in wrestling. So hopefully that'll be the same next Monday night, and we get a really good Legends Monday Night Raw. We'll see if that can spike a rating. Speaking of spiking ratings, SmackDown drew 3 million on Christmas night. That's pretty damn good. But then again, everybody's home on Christmas night, and sometimes TVs are just on because it came on right after football. So they probably got good ratings, following that and stuff. But it was also a good show. Cage match with Owens and Roman was fantastic, and all that was good. The whole damn show. And Big E winning the Intercontinental title as well. Nope, I did not. How easy? What did Xavier Woods do? I was that during the 8-man match. That's when I started setting up the podcast. During that match, because I knew it was going to be just a lot of action. I wasn't going to be able to keep up with it anyway. So that's when I set my light up and started putting stuff together. So I wasn't really watching that match closely. But that's cool. I'm sure there was probably more than one of those instances. I only noticed the McIntyre and Tom Phillips one, but I bet you there were some instances in the ring for sure. With some of the wrestlers. What did he do? Fill me in. And thanks for that 5. Let me see if there's any others I need to catch up with. Oh, come on, Greg, get over here. There we go. There we go. All right, sorry about that. Just doing some maintenance. All right, going up here, making sure I didn't miss any of these super chats. All right, that was the last one I left with there, Tiger Gamerzilla, and then just knock out a couple more, and then we're going to get into the Q&A. Lambo for life, I think. Thanks for the $5, dude. Hashtag Chili's money. Hashtag Brodie Lee. I feel horrible about what's happened. I really hope this donation can help the family. Deserves future Hall of Fame 2021. I'm not sure about it, and that definitely will. Thank you for the donation. I don't know about the Hall of Fame with him. It's not something I can really envision WWE doing, but I think if AEW creates a Hall of Fame, I don't know if they really can yet. They're a year old. He might be like one of their inaugural members. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what they did. So they're gonna honor him very well, I'm sure, on Wednesday night in terms of Hall of Fame. Hopefully one day. The only reason he's not a Hall of Fame wrestler is because WWE, and their use of him. Really, he certainly had the ability, and he certainly had the knowledge, and had all that stuff. It's a fact. Robbie Fazzle, yeah, Brock is coming back at WrestleMania season. I'm sure he is. Brock ain't gonna miss that payday. Brock is lucky. He had to come into WrestleMania to drop that belt in the empty arena to Drew, and then he's like, I'm taking COVID off. So yeah, he'll be back this year, I'm sure, in the WrestleMania Thunderdome or in Tampa or whatever the hell's going on for Mania this year. And the thing is now, he's been back a couple of times and he's lost. He lost to Seth a couple times the year before. Then he came back and got pretty much beat down by Drew McIntyre, beat pretty convincingly at WrestleMania. So does Brock come back and immediately walk into the WrestleMania door and lose again? I say no. I say Brock builds a little bit momentum when he comes back in order to put someone else over at the end. Because otherwise, if he just comes back and loses every match he has, that it becomes less and less important. So I think when Brock gets back, he's got to be Brock first, and then he's got to go down to somebody. Whether that means winning a title or not, I don't know. I think there's lots of potential, lots of possibilities on the Raw brand, but they could also do the SmackDown thing with Brock as well. If they want to do a Roman Reigns either feud or alliance, or Heyman can represent both of them, one on Raw, one on SmackDown. That could be possible as well, and they could kind of create their two-man power trip type of thing where both guys rule their respective brands. I wouldn't mind seeing that, especially if it led to some sort of a clash or a confrontation down the line, especially if, it would be hard to envision Roman Reigns holding the title all the way until Survivor Series, but he could drop the title and win it back. So the same thing with Brock. If we come down to Survivor Series time next year and they've been able to hold off on any sort of Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns interaction on TV until then, and they both happen to be champion, in the fall of 2021, you book them for Survivor Series, much like you did Roman and Drew this year. That could be a really interesting match. So we'll see. We'll see. Keith Lee versus Brock would be great. I'd be into that as well. Oh, man. I don't know. Watch them do a Kane, Lita, Snitsky storyline with Orton, Fiend, Alexa. I don't know if they'll go in that direction. I don't think we're going to be punting babies or having miscarriages or anything like that. I hope not. We could see a wedding, though. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind a Fiend and Alexa Bliss wedding. That would be hilarious. Hilarious. And I'm curious about what kind of new look Bray Wyatt is going to have when he comes back. How different it is going to be, or if it's going to be similar, or if it's going to have some burn effects to it, or if he's going to look like a big melting ball of wax or whatever. I don't know. But we'll see how he looks when he comes back. It just should be interesting. I think it's probably a good thing for him, now at this point. Because as much as I love the Fiend gimmick and the character and the presentation and the music and all that stuff, that Saudi Arabia thing still just sticks in my ass. So this could be, a hard reset, something like that. New beginning, new year, new look, and start over. Just don't put him in the ring with Goldberg again, please. And I'd appreciate that. And shout out to Deshaun Robinson with the $4.99 Chili's Money Super Chat. And I agree, dude, 100%. I saw that today. The Being the Elite was released earlier on today, and it highlighted all of Lee's best moments, including Dark Order and the funniest moments. I watched a lot of that and had a lot of tributes from the talent who, said a few words about Brodie as well. It was opened up by, I believe, it was Matt. Matt Jackson opened it up, and he looked like he struggled to get through that 10 seconds. I mean, it really did. He was kind of in the camera, deep breath, and he kind of said, it's Monday, you know what that means. This is dedicated to Brodie Lee, and it looked like it was the hardest 10 seconds of his life. So that had to be rough. I thought it was going to be a little bit before we got some sort of a Being the Elite, episode or tribute to Brodie, but we got one today, and I wasn't expecting that. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Just another one of the 10 million examples why Brodie Lee was the absolute fucking man. But anyway, that is going to be a wrap on Monday Night Raw. We are now going to go into the Q&A. I'm ready for it. Hope you guys are. We've got a lot. Oh, you did? I'm sorry, Zane G. Let me answer that first before we get into this. I'm actually going to go up and grab another beer as well. Oh, I acknowledged you for the dollar. I said Zane G earlier, but you didn't comment. But no, I even mentioned the WCW cards coming to you. I saw, unless there was another one I'm missing, but I don't see it, my man. Oh, they did, Barry? See, thank you for that. I don't pay attention. Remember when I told you I didn't even notice Big E's new theme song for like 3 weeks? Barry's telling me they changed Alexa Bliss's theme for a while, but tonight was the first night I noticed it. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, if you guys can excuse me for less than 2 minutes, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to get the Q&A set up, and I'm going to grab another beer, and this time it's going to be a Broken Skull IPA, and I'm going to take a piss. So if you guys can just hang tight, I promise I will be right back. Stay tuned. right, we are back. Thank you very much, guys, for your patience and for waiting for me there. I had to take a little bit of a break, get the Q&A set up, and I wanted to grab a delicious Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA, frosty beverage to be able to drink while I talk to you guys and while I answer questions. And we hang out and talk about 2020 in general and answer all sorts of wrestling questions spanning all sorts of topics and different time periods and things like that. We should make a pretty fun couple of hours out of this, hopefully, and hopefully many of you will stick around in the chat and hang out and answer and ask questions with everybody. Like you saw in the opening graphic there, I thought we would at least talk a little bit first about some of the horrible deaths that we all went through this year, some really big ones and some really tragic ones. All right, we're up and running there. And I think obviously probably the two biggest ones are the ones we learned just a couple of days ago with Brodie Lee, and another huge one, equally every single bit as tragic, is Shad Gaspard, who of course tragically drowned by trying to save his kid from a rip current and got sucked under, and he died a hero. And it's just so awful, when somebody this young and a family man and a father and all of that passes away. Shad was a big enough punch in the gut as it was. Before Brodie, we would have already looked back at this year as just being horrible. And even in non-WWE, look at what happened to Kobe Bryant at the beginning of the year, right before COVID broke, right before the shitstorm started. We lost Kobe Bryant in a helicopter crash, and then, what happened to Shad. And of course, Brodie Lee was absolutely awful, but they were probably the two biggest in terms of tragic ones. But we also had people like Road Warrior Animal pass away. Even though he was a bit older, we weren't aware of him being sick. That was quite a shock. Howard Finkel and Pat Patterson, two other, enormous legends that passed away, but they were older. Howard Finkel was not in good health. Pat Patterson was, close to 80 years old. So, at least they had lived lives, but it's still very sad because I don't have any sort of wrestling memories prior to Howard Finkel or Pat for that matter. I got a chance to meet Pat a couple of times and he was just a fabulous man. We lost the Ugandan giant Kamala, who was a legend, and he had a lot of problems. James Harris had a lot of trouble, with diabetes and stuff. And I think he had a foot amputation and a lot of health problems, and he struggled throughout his life. And his death was sad. The Rock's dad, Rocky Johnson, Soul Man Rocky Johnson, former tag team champion of WWE, another legend in the company, passed away. I should have shouted her out earlier with Brodie Lee and Shad Gaspard, but when it comes to tragedy and just absolutely awful things, you got to add Hana Kimura in there as well. How old was she, guys? You guys tell me, 22 or something, and committed suicide because of a lot of the comments and bullying that she was getting online, and just a lot of the just horrible things that people say. And she, posted some social media posts of, mutilating herself and saying that she was going to do it, and she did it. And it destroyed, the wrestling community. And that was just so horribly sad, and you had Tracy Smothers, another kind of legend that passed away, but a guy who, legend in terms of what he gave and the territories he worked and what a journeyman and he was and what a worker he was and how many guys he taught and helped. And much like, John Huber, he was a great man. Everybody had positive stories and how nice he was and how he'd go out of his way to help people and things like that. So we lost some really good people this year. Danny Hodge just passed away on Christmas Day. Another big legend, somebody that was very influential to somebody like Jim Ross and others. We had Danny Havoc, Bullet Bob Armstrong, who I believe had like bone marrow cancer. Pampero Firpo, another legend from back in the day, passed away. And some wrestling-related people who didn't work directly in wrestling but passed through there, like Zeus, like Kevin Green. Both of those deaths just came within the last couple of weeks, did they not? Zeus, Kevin Green, Danny Hodge, and Pat Patterson now. All were pretty recently. So was Terry Smothers. But also Alex Trebek, longtime host of Jeopardy. National treasure, passed away this year. Regis Philbin, another guy that appeared in WWE. Actually, Trebek and Philbin appeared at the very same WrestleMania, at WrestleMania 7, but Regis had all the wrestlers on his show for years and years. Big wrestling fan. Little Richard passed away. Should at least mention Little Richard. He opened up WrestleMania 10 with, to this day, my favorite rendition of America the Beautiful they've ever done at WrestleMania. 1 and 1A. I was there for 3 for Aretha Franklin at the Pontiac Silverdome. That one was pretty epic, but in terms of how this one looked visually and the lighting treatment and the choir and everything, I really liked the Little Richard performance at WrestleMania 10. That was great. If you've never seen that, go watch it. It's fantastic. And I know I'm missing some others. I know there's a couple of other people here or there, but to me, those were the most notable deaths of the year that I think were just horrible. And like I said, Brodie and Shad and Hana were awful, awful, and oh my God, just so remarkably tragic. My God, just not a good year. Not a good year for deaths. That's for sure. We lost legends. We lost young people as well. Just awful. So another kind of bittersweet part of this podcast that we had to get into there. But I did want to acknowledge the fallen heroes of this year because there was quite a few of them. I will start getting into the questions now. Let me just go over here and catch up on everything. Make sure there's nothing I missed. Super chat wise, I got you, How Wheezy. Deshaun, I've got you. And I got a couple more down here I need to knock out. And then I'll scroll up and see if there's any questions immediately in the chat to answer. And then I will go through and answer some of these emails. And I'll mix and match some of them as well. I also want to say hello and shout out Jordan Karg. I'm glad you're here, man. Good to see you. Appreciate the $5 and the Chili's money. Rest in peace, Brodie Lee. Had the privilege of seeing him wrestle a few times over the years at pay-per-views, Raws, and house shows. He truly was the man. Hashtag Chili's money. I wish I could have. I'm trying to remember if I've seen him live. If I did, it would have had to be at Survivor Series 2018 or the first ever SmackDown on Fox. Those are the last two shows I've been to. Were the Bludgeons even together at Survivor Series 2000? I might have seen him live. I don't remember. I wish I did. I wish he was involved in more memorable stuff, but that's cool. You got to see him a couple times. And the fans, man, they shared pretty cool stories too. A lot of fans sharing pictures and photos of him. Seemed pretty approachable dude and just super nice. Super nice. But thanks for that, Jordan. I agree with you, Tigerzilla. If I could describe 2020 as a pay-per-view, it would be Super Showdown 2019. Or what year was it? December to Dismember 06 maybe? Or maybe 07? Whatever that show was bad. Bad, bad, bad. And thank you for the $5, Stone Cold. Would Hollywood Hogan worked if it was in an Attitude Era in WWE? I think so. I don't know. You'd have to have maybe Hall and Nash with him or a Bischoff or somebody to play off of, some sort of heel with him. But I think, the bragging aspect of his character, how wrestling wouldn't exist without him, that sort of stuff would have been fine in the Attitude Era. And Austin would have loved to shut him up, I think it could have worked well. Sean Connery, there's another one. Another death this year. Not wrestling related, but that's really all I was talking about there. But yeah, Sean Connery was another big, big name. And thank you for the 3 more from Tigerzilla. Oh, yeah. And Chadwick Boseman was a really, really sad one, of course, because he was ill as well. And that was another death that I think just shocked everybody. Big time, just due to his youth and everything. Super sad. And appreciate the $2. The Undertaker retired. Yeah. Big year. Randy Paula, thank you for the sub. You'll like it here, I promise. I promise. Thank you, Grapefruit Sizzles. Yeah, 22 was Hanakamura. Yeah, that's just so stupidly young. Poor kid. I just wish somebody could have gotten to her because, I think you're it's more likely maybe to be a little bit more, mentally unstable and have confidence issues and things like that when you're younger. And I think when you get older, you kind of become a little bit more stable. And I just wish that somebody could have gotten to her because I think if she could have made it another 5 or 10 years, she'd look back at that time in her life and say, wow, I can't believe I almost did that type of thing. So I'm really bummed out that happened. How awful. Yeah, that was another one that really, put a big gash in all of us. That was a rough one. That happened in, I guess, May, maybe? When did she pass away? I think it was May. It wasn't long ago. That would be nice. I can see AEW doing that. I'm not quite sure if I can see WWE doing that, but having a Brodie Lee Memorial Battle Royal, that might be a fun thing, I think, for AEW to incorporate into one of their pay-per-views annually. At a Double or Nothing or a Fyter Fest or Revolution or whatever, do Full Gear, something like that, do a Brodie Lee Memorial Battle Royal and do that annually every single year, because he really is, in terms of this company's legacy as they go forward and they grow and they're around for a few years, Brodie is always going to be that one, that one big death, the one that kind of started it all and the one that we all remember. And I think they're going to do a really good job of just honoring him as an AEW legend, because the short time he was there, in terms of the length of the company, he made a big splash there. So I could see AEW doing that. I think it would be a stretch to think WWE would, though, for me. Green should be in the NFL Hall of Fame. Is he not in the Hall of Fame? How is Kevin Green not in the Hall of Fame? Doesn't he lead in sacks or second or third or some shit? How is he not in the Hall of Fame? Are you sure? I don't really know 100% fact, but I would think he's in there. How the hell is he not in there? Crazy. Man Ray, appreciate the $5 as well. Not wrestling related, but for rap fans, Pop Smoke and King Von passed. I'm not sure who either of one of those are, but that sucks as well. Yeah, I know there's gonna be a lot of people I missed out in entertainment, in music and sports even and things like that. The ones I was listing off earlier, I was trying to get everybody wrestling related, but even in that, I think I might have missed one or two. So, just the ones that most people recognized, I guess, is what I was trying to talk about there. Yeah, Tigerzilla, I'm going to watch Wrestle Kingdom. Now, this is cool because that's going to be a fun couple of days because Wrestle Kingdom for me on the West Coast generally will start at midnight. So it'll probably start midnight the 4th. So basically the midnight on the 3rd, the night of the 3rd is when Wrestle Kingdom should start for me. That'll be a Monday. Then I'll watch Wrestle Kingdom night 1, go to sleep, wake up, and then we got Monday Night Raw, the big January 4th show. And then after that is over, a couple hours later is when Wrestle Kingdom night 2 comes on. That's the way I think it is. So it's going to be a long 3 days, all kind of really concentrated of wrestling there, and should be interesting. My Raw review will not be affected next week. I'll come up here and do it, and I'll probably just stay up late and watch Wrestle Kingdom as well, and then try to get into the results of that on the following podcast or something. But yeah, I'll be watching. I've been a subscriber now to New Japan World for, I guess, 3 years. I subscribed to it when Jericho had his first match there against Omega, and I was like, I'm going to sign up for it. And I've had it ever since, and it's been a great tool. It's well worth the $9 to $10 a month, just like the network is, to be able to have access to that stuff and to see all that. And I use it. I use it all the time. So I'll be watching that night for sure. Thank you for another $5, Jordan Carg. I appreciate it. 2020 been a horrific year. Been unemployed since March. Used YouTube for side money. Thanks to all the videos and keeping me sane through this time. Absolutely, man. More than happy to be here for all of you guys. Have helped me get through this as well, because I wasn't employed since March, but I've been on and off on sabbatical because when we get shut down, the restaurant has to close and I'm not working and I'm not making money. So I've been in and out of employment all year as well. And I've been doing the same thing. YouTube has been my backup. It's really helped me kind of stay afloat. Without it this year, it might have been a little bit rough, been a little bit scary, because unemployment, for those of you who are on it, that ain't enough to support you, So this has really been helping. I'm really happy with the decision I made a few months back. I just decided, I've had a lot of people have been telling me about this and pushing me to it, but I invested a little bit in Bitcoin, and it is paying off huge. So I don't know anything about that stuff. I had to basically educate myself just from a beginner standpoint and see how to do it and how to set it all up and how to buy it and how to hold it and things like that. And but I don't know really beyond that. I'm kind of illiterate to it, but I just wanted to put a little bit of money into it, and I've seen it come close to double the amount I invested. So it's, and I didn't invest a small amount. I invested a pretty big chunk. So it's nice to see that. So little things like that is going to be like what we all have to do to, to get by. So this whole COVID thing sucks. I feel horrible for anybody that's had to deal with this nonsense, being out of work or struggling to get bills paid. It's frustrating. They're trying to pass a $2,000 stimulus check for here in the States. It went through the House today, probably will not make it through the Senate. So that's probably not going to happen, but that would be a lot more helpful than the $600 bullshit they're trying to send out to us. So either way, I'm ready for this vaccine to get in as many bodies as possible and for us to start living a normal life, for sure. Hey, Lisa, good to see you. Welcome back. Oh, man. Sorry to hear about your sister, Randy. Yeah, in the past 18 months, I've lost 2 grandmothers and my dad. So I'm kind of there with you, man, in terms of that. Lost a son. Oh, gosh, yeah, Lisa, I'm sorry to hear that. What's up, Daniel? And hey, Scott Moss. Welcome back, man. I appreciate the 5. Hey, good mic work. Happy early New Year. Who would win Mega Powers versus Brothers of Destruction? Thank you for everything, and I hope everyone here has a better 2021. Mega Powers versus Brothers of Destruction. Well, the Mega Powers were together in 1988 and a little bit of 1987. at that time, Hogan was still pretty much invincible. So I think based on Hogan's invincibility, and he just came off a 4-year run with the title. Hogan didn't lose to anybody back then, and when he did, it took a whole lot of nonsense, like the twin referee bullshit on the main event. So based on where the Mega Powers were at the time in their career, I'm going with them. I'm going with Hogan and Savage. It's my second favorite wrestler of all time, teamed up with one of my least favorite wrestlers of all time, but the team at the time, I have fond memories of them, and as great as the Brothers of Destruction were, I think the Mega Powers were stronger, although, Brothers of Destruction might be a little bit more cohesive because Mega Powers had problems, but then again, so did Taker and Kane. They were on again, off again so many times. They both had heat. Yeah, Mega Powers, but I'm kind of reluctant on the Mega Powers. But it's hard to vote against Hogan in 1988. He was pretty unstoppable, in 87 for that matter. One match I wish I could have seen in person, front row, and why? Probably Brett and Owen at WrestleMania 10. Yeah, Brett and Owen, WrestleMania 10, 100%. That'd be the match I'd pick. Let me go over here to a couple of emails. I got a bunch of email questions in here that I dumped in. I want to knock a couple of these out and say hello to people that did take the time to email in. Over the last week or so, I've been telling you guys, hey, send them over to my email, and I'll answer a few on the stream here. So we'll start with David Schneider, because this one's easy, it's easier because it already came out. But you had asked me, you sent in this question prior to the Slammy Awards. And at this year's Slammy Awards, Edge and Roman Reigns were two of the nominees for Comeback of the Year. And you wanted to know, regardless of who won the Slammies, who would I pick between those two for Comeback of the Year? I think MVP and maybe somebody else might have been in the category. I didn't watch the Slammy Awards, but I did look up the results, and it does look like Edge picked up that Slammy, and I got to go with Edge too. I mean, Roman had a great story. I mean, Roman having to leave with his second bout of leukemia was very scary for a lot of the fans and for what he has to go through, and him coming back was awesome, and he's back better than ever now. But as great as that was, and as much of a good feel-good story that is and was for Roman Reigns, Edge was just so awesome. I mean, he had the last great moment prior to the pandemic, the last great moment we may ever see. On the very same day that Kobe Bryant passed away, as a matter of fact, on the Rumble, and he came out there and his music hit, and that camera caught him, and his facial expression is still to this day the image of the year for me. It has not been topped since. Nothing they've done has really even come close to that. Just to see how cool and emotional and awesome it was for him to experience that, and hearing the crowd and all that shit was just amazing. Unfortunately, with COVID, it didn't give them the payoff I think they wanted at WrestleMania, but still, him just coming back and being in the ring again and being there was pretty cool. And I think the greatest match ever turned out to be much better than the match they had at WrestleMania. Or was it there? What the hell was it? Or was WrestleMania the greatest match ever? I forgot. The second one they did, when you had some, crowd noise and effects put in, that was much better. Much better story was told there. But then, unfortunately, Edge got injured. Now, I'm hoping he's doing all right. I'm hoping he's ready to come back, and it would be cool to see him do the return again at the Royal Rumble. It will be very different this time. They likely will be in the Thunderdome. I seriously doubt there'll be fans there, unless they reconfigure Tropicana, which I'm hoping they do, to make the entrance in the dugout like they normally do for the Royal Rumbles in the baseball stadiums in the past couple of years. So if they're able to do that in the Thunderdome and maybe put some fans in there too, although they're inside. So without an open air stadium, I don't know, maybe you're not going to be able to do it, but at least change up, the configuration there of the dome and try to make the Rumble look a little bit unique, and just not like every other show we've been seeing from WWE. And he could come back there. And then from there, who knows what he does? Feuds with The Fiend. Some people have suggested another match with Randy Orton. Maybe that whole thing can culminate, or maybe Edge will get involved in the Randy Orton and Fiend stuff. Maybe Edge will help Randy Orton against The Fiend. That could be possible too. Wouldn't be surprised, especially if it's a gimmick match or another House of Horrors match. And just imagine just seeing Edge turn up in the house and helping Orton beat The Fiend. But like I said, based on the fact that, Randy Orton cooked The Fiend to medium well, I think The Fiend will win the blow-off, whatever that is, with his new look or whatever. That's what I'm guessing. I also want to answer one from Arthur Jones. Oh, no, I can't answer that yet because I haven't thought that one all the way through. Oh, Alex Bryant, why did you start holding a pen in your streams? Well, the reason I have one in my hand right now is because sometimes I have little notes. I got a little note card here. And even though I have a lot of notes typed up on a document here, sometimes I overlook stuff. And if there's anything important that I want to make sure I say, I have a little list and I kind of check them off as I go. And that's why sometimes it's only for bigger streams that you see that. But yeah, that's why I just thought that question was funny. I'm like, he noticed that? I didn't think anybody could see my hands above the screen here, but yeah, I guess you have noticed that. But that's just because I make little side notes as well. Stephen K, I think Stephen Copland is your name, right? Good to hear from you again from Wisconsin. Sent an email asking me, do I think AEW is going to be what WCW was and have ratings wins for many weeks, and then in the end, WWE puts them out of business in 1 to 3 years? I don't think it's going to be the same scenario. First of all, it's just a different business now. It's not the same. WCW, their ownership was always kind of up in the air when it was sold. Once Ted Turner kind of got out of the game, that made the company really, really unstable. So all that money they had up front to spend and get all the stars, kind of went away. And then people started jumping back to WWE. I don't think we're going to see a same scenario or situation like that again. This is totally different. If AEW, I'm not saying AEW can never beat them in the ratings. That would be a laughable idea maybe a year ago or before AEW started. But when you see them getting 75% of the rating that Raw is getting, or 65% of the rating Raw is getting, that's a lot. They're almost there. If Raw's doing a 1.5 and they're doing 900,000, they ain't far off, man, at all. So they're within striking distance. And maybe if, things just keep going south for WWE, ratings are still bad and the fans continuously get more and more fed up. And at the same time, AEW continues to improve, build momentum, add talent, get guys over, and and just keep going in the right direction. That is not completely out of the question. But having it come all the way around full circle, where then WWE then capitalizes and puts AEW out of business, I don't see that happening. Even though WWE has a ton of money to spend and they are willing to spend money just to keep people away, I think AEW's got too much, positive marks from an infrastructure point of view. WCW back in the day, we used to hear about all the political problems back there and how guys, just couldn't get over. And it was such a mess and nobody knew who was in charge. And, and Hogan was just running rampant and the NWO could do whatever they want. I don't see, even with the elite being there, I don't see it getting to that point to where those guys are, resented to that degree by the rest of the talent where it's like unhappy. Right now, you hear about all the political bullshit in the WWE, which is a big reason why a lot of those people are in AEW, like Rusev and Brodie Lee, who voiced their frustrations and wanted out, and eventually WWE let them go. Revival or FTR, same thing. So as long as the political situation, as long as it's a more pleasant place to work for the talent, because I know for me personally, if I'm a wrestler, that's what I'm most concerned about. I'm concerned with a stress-free environment. Not that there's not going to be any stress. I'm sure there's still going to be internal and political struggles and bad blood and heat and stuff like that. Every locker room has that, but not to the degree that maybe you saw it in WCW, and certainly not to the degree that you see in WWE now. You just hear so much nonsense. So provided AEW remains a stress-free, easygoing workplace, that's going to be attractive to talent. Even if they're making a little bit less money, the schedule is a lot less grueling, and they don't have to go to work and worry about being micromanaged or some fucking asshole in management up their ass about something stupid, getting mad at them for cutting their hair, tell them to take a social media post down, or take away their Twitch, or third-party bullshit, or just fuck with you, bring you to TV and have you sit in catering every week, or whatever. Provided it's still a more pleasant and enjoyable place to work, I think AEW will, always be that option for people, and AEW probably doesn't have to worry about WWE putting them out of business. I just think it's going to have too much support from the wrestlers. So that's my guess on that. Is I think it's kind of impossible to rewrite that story the way you did back in 1996 through 1999 with Raw and Nitro. It's just kind of not the same world anymore. So I'm going to vote no on that one. Let me go up here and answer a couple super chats that I saw in my peripherals and see if any of those have questions attached to them. Hey, Justin Mai, I would have loved to see Aleister Black and The Undertaker. I would have too. What's going on? Anybody got any scoop on Aleister? I mean, his wife's gone now, so WWE doesn't seem like they give a rat's ass about him at all, which is a shame, because not only do I think he could have been great. I think he could have been fucking champion. You know, another NXT talent they just did dick with. And he's got something to offer. He's got a presence. You know, he's good in the ring. He's big. He's got a presence and presentation, and there's no downside to him at all. Typical WWE, clueless as to what to do with him. He'd be great in AEW. At this point, I hope they just forget about him, release him, and he turns up over there. Aleister Black would be great in AEW. He would be an asset to them. He would be, I hate to say this, he could fill a void. He could fill a void of a Brodie Lee. You know? Imagine those shoes to fill. Imagine if they were able to get their hands on Aleister Black and he turned into the new Exalted One or something. And, you know, he'd be a suitable replacement, I suppose, for a Brodie Lee. I don't know if he could be quite as charismatic and entertaining in terms of, you know, what he did and what a leader he was and stuff. But, you know, in terms of a bigger guy, you know, an ass-kicking guy to lead a faction, he could be a suitable replacement if they decided to go in that role, you know, or maybe they never fill his shoes. I'm curious to know the direction of the Dark Order now, you know, based on what's going on. Chris Ludecki, thanks, man. Appreciate the $5. If the King didn't leave WWE in 2001, do you think he attacks Paul Heyman during the invasion angle and eventually faces Tommy Dreamer? Maybe they could have done a callback to what they did in 97. You know, Lawler appeared on some ECW pay-per-views back then, and him and Heyman have had, you know, run-ins way before the WWE days that then translated and spilled into WWE. And yeah, Lawler left right before the buyout. I'll never forget that, because I was big into the dirt sheets and the hotlines back then, and I remember hearing about Lawler leaving and being gone for the company, and then Heyman even took his place on Raw, and they were just like a week away from the buyout, and they were just a couple of weeks away from WrestleMania, like a month away from WrestleMania or something. So this all happened so close to WrestleMania 17, and then right after 17, that's when the invasion kicked off. They went through the entire invasion angle, and then the night that it ended is when he came back. I was in the building in Charlotte for that Monday Night Raw, the night after Survivor Series 2001, and he came back replacing Paul Heyman. So it's so funny how he literally left when it started and came back when it ended. And he's one of the names I always said. I said Lawler, Triple H, and Chris Benoit would have been huge assets to the invasion angle had they been there and healthy and stuff. And of course, a lot of other people they never signed, like Ric Flair and Goldberg and Hogan and guys like that. But for what was available, I think a Benoit and Triple H would have been really useful to that angle, and Lawler would have played a role too. And they would have definitely played into his history with ECW, and I have no doubt they would have done an ECW match, and facing Tommy Dreamer is likely. Dreamer's the one that took the tennis rack to the nuts or whatever, didn't he? Or kendo stick to the nuts by Lawler in ECW. That was bad. AJ, thanks for the 5, man. Appreciate it. Which the better Brett and Owen match, their WrestleMania 10 match or their steel cage match? Both fantastic. My God, those matches are good. But WrestleMania 10, I'm just partial to that. I love that match. It was just simple, you know, but it was very Hart style, you know, a lot of holds and counter holds, and, you know, they got cooking a couple of times, and it was a showcase for, it was a match to make Owen, because at that point, Owen was still like a mid-carder, you know, so the upset was even bigger. It wasn't like he was on equal footing with Brett, you know, so for him to score that upset at WrestleMania in the opening match when Brett has a match later on with Yokozuna, or the winner of Luger and Yoko, was a really big shock, especially for me as a fan. And man, it put Owen over huge, and it gave him a title program as a result, you know, that pretty much culminated in that SummerSlam match. But that match deserves a lot of credit too. It was super exciting, but for that time, I mean, I think they had kind of the deal where they couldn't do a lot of blood and stuff. So Brett and Owen it was up to them to make that match really good without it being the brutal style of cage match you were accustomed to seeing in the WWE in the 80s. You know, you think about the Snuka and Moroccos and the Hogan and the Orndorffs and guys like that, these bloody bloodbath brawls that you would see in these cages a lot of times. It is a whole different ball of wax now, and they turned it into more. They managed to make it into a wrestling match and really focus the match around escaping the cage. And Owen came really close a couple of times, diving for the door and getting really close to being over the top of the cage. And it was just entertaining because it kept you on the edge of your seat. They really did that a lot. And I know in ladder matches and cage matches, it can get a bit frustrating sometimes how slow they climb up the cage and stuff. But Brett and Owen did a really good job of keeping that to a minimum. You know, there were a couple times, but there weren't many times where I'm like, oh my God, get the fuck up there already. You know, where sometimes you're like, what are they doing with the ladder? Why does it take 5 minutes to set it up underneath the belt and stuff? So they did a good job of making that a nail biting type of ride. And I loved the cage match. I'm just partial, you know, to that WrestleMania 10. It was in the Garden, opened up the 10th WrestleMania. which at the time I remember saying to myself, damn, I can't believe there's been 10 WrestleManias. Now what are we on, 37? Jesus Christ. Back then it seemed like a lot. Holy shit, 10? And now we're on, that was 27 fucking years ago. My God. My God. What a little shit I was back then. But yeah, that match was fantastic. I love it. Thank you for that, Lisa, and thanks for your dancing bird. I appreciate that. How Weezy, appreciate the $2 from you as well. Random question, what do you think of AJ's bodyguard? I like his size. He's just enormous. I like him a lot. I'm happy that they've started to have him speak a little bit, you know, almost could be super hilarious for all we know. He's just sat there really silent up until this point. And he was the guy, I think, that was guarding the door during the Raw Underground stuff, right, too, with Shane McMahon. So the fact that they put him with AJ, I thought was kind of an odd choice, but it's the visual is pretty hilarious, given how small AJ is. But I almost thought that they could have, you know how the Hurt Business was pretty much, you know, they were a little bit involved with Raw Underground there. They had a couple of weeks there where they just beat the shit out of everybody. When Raw Underground ended, they're kind of like ass-kicking fighters and stuff, so I thought it would have been cool for them to have a locker room or a door, just like Raw Underground did, where Omos is their kind of like bodyguard, where he protects the door, just has Hurt Business on it, and you can only see them by appointment and shit like that. I almost thought that could be a good role for him too, being the bodyguard or being, you know, the guy that played the same role that he did with Shane McMahon with the Hurt Business. But putting him with AJ, so far so good. I don't hate it. I don't feel like it's got some long shelf life. I feel like by the time we get to WrestleMania, this alliance could be over. And I don't know if this is just a stepping stone to eventually get this guy in the ring and how he's progressed there. I mean, I know he's been working out the PC and shit like that, but is he good? You know, for all we know, he might be the next Rock. You know, he's correct me if I'm wrong, he's 9'3", 682 pounds, according to WWE.com. So it'll be interesting to see if a guy that size, how he moves around in the ring. And the few times we've heard him speak, not bad, but I think I need to hear more. But so far, I like him. And basically, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that he's just really good. He's too big not to be good. Or he's too big to not do anything with. Like, I want him to be good. Let's use him. He's huge. Fucking huge. Well, John Colombo's got Randy Orton breaking Ric Flair's record. I think Cena will first. Cena only needs one. Orton needs, I think, 3 to break, right? 2 to tie. So I think he's got a ways off. I think Cena comes back and wins that Universal title. Another feather in his cap that Cena doesn't have yet. Do I watch War or SmackDown? I watch both. Yeah, of course, Owen is the greatest promo of all time, kicking Brett's leg out of his leg. My God. Yeah, Razor and Shawn ladder match at that same show of WrestleMania 10 would have been another match I would have really liked to see live just because of how innovative it was and to see those ladder bumps up close. That probably would have been on my list had Brett and Owen not, you know, had that opening match. Yeah, Damien, I just said that. I think Cena will absolutely break Flair's record. I think he has to. Cena has to win that Universal title. He has to. Unless WWE is going to unify it at some point and ditch it. But if they plan to have that belt around, Cena's got to be in the title history. He absolutely has to. So there's no way around that. The only way Cena does not win that title is if they unify it in the next year or so. Otherwise, he will be Universal Champ. No doubt about it. Yeah, Justin, we never got there. We never got to a Raw Underground champ, but had Raw Underground stuck around and it was still going right now might have been the time they might have introduced a title. So I would have been cool with that as well. As long as it didn't turn out to be stupid, like the 24/7 title is such a joke now. Jessica G. Greg, would you rather be IWGP Heavyweight Champion, AEW Champion, Impact Champion, NXT Champion, WWE Champion, or Universal Champion? All right, let's get rid of Impact Champion right now. I have no interest in being Impact Champion. I think I'm good enough to be Impact Champion now, to be honest. IWGP would love that for the respect, but I think I would struggle to eat food over there. So let's get rid of that. I don't want to live in Japan. I want to visit Japan, absolutely, but I don't want to live there. I don't want to live there. AEW Champion, not yet. Not yet. NXT title would be awesome. Universal Champion, I'm also going to say not yet. But the WWE title or NXT title, one of those. Got to go WWE, right? The same belt that Brett and Shawn and Hogan and Savage and guys like that held, Austin, Rock. I'll be in the list with those guys. Yeah, let's go WWE champion. Still this day, as much as WWE annoys me, as much as they suck, I still want to be WWE champion. I don't know, Naveen, who will face Drew at WrestleMania at this point. I'm guessing maybe the Rumble winner, unless Brock comes back and they do a rematch. I just don't know. It might be a John Cena. Drew McIntyre, John Cena for the title. Drew beats him, adds to his legacy, beats Brock 1 year, Cena the next. And then maybe after he beats Cena, Cena goes over to SmackDown around SummerSlam time and wins the Universal title over there or something. I don't know. Who is your picks? Who would you guys pick for Drew? Is it somebody currently on the Raw roster, or would it be somebody like a Brock or a Cena? Because if you're talking about people on the Raw roster, who you got? Keith Lee, Sheamus, AJ, all those guys. We've seen wrestle him lately. Edge is an option. I would not mind seeing Edge get a title shot against Drew McIntyre. That might be nice. But other than that, who? Brock, Edge, or maybe somebody jumping up from NXT, or Cena, or somebody jumping up from NXT, but I don't think anybody would go right into a program with Drew. Even if they brought up Adam Cole or something, I don't think he'd make a good opponent. Unless Balor comes back. Finn Balor could come back. I don't know. I want to hear you guys' options on that and candidates. Who's going to face Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania? Bobby Lashley is good, and I cannot believe I'm saying this. I said this earlier on when we were talking about Lashley. I kind of feel like SummerSlam would be more fun. Just keep building him. Let him keep winning and winning and winning, and don't drop that U.S. title. But, hell, he did declare himself eligible for the Royal Rumble tonight. He will be in it. Drew and Lashley. If that match happens, I want Lashley to win. Oh, yeah, Big E could jump. Big E could win the Rumble and jump. That's very true. I wouldn't mind that. He'd be reunited with the New Day, and then the New Day could have the moment with Big E, the same exact moment that they had with Big E. They could have that with, with Kofi. They could have that with Big E. But I guess it wouldn't matter if they were on the same brand or not. They'll all be on the same show. They can come out to the ring. That just leaves Xavier Woods all by himself with no world title. But Big E's IC champ right now. So I don't know if that's going to cock block him for the Royal Rumble, or if it's going to keep him, or they can still put him in it, as the champion too. But he might have a title defense on that show or whatever. But Sami Zayn's going to chase him for a while. We'll just see how long he runs with it. He could be Intercontinental Champion going into WrestleMania. And that's the thing, even though it just might not be in the cards for Big E right now. There's other guys that might be a little bit ahead of him, like a Bobby Lashley. I think even though they're both the respective secondary champions on the brands, I think Bobby Lashley is a little bit ahead of Big E right now in terms of, his toughness and how much of an ass kicker he is. So, just because Big E doesn't go into WrestleMania this year to face a Drew or face a Roman doesn't mean they're not going to eventually put the title on him. He just might be Intercontinental Champion right now instead. And then maybe around SummerSlam, we can start talking about Big E again. I don't know. I'm never really in a rush to do anything. And I feel like since New Day split up, WWE hasn't really pushed Big E fast or hard. It took him a while. Sometimes he wasn't even on TV. He's been on the kickoff show and a couple pay-per-views. It doesn't feel like they're giving him any sort of a push. So if they do it now, it would seem like it would be an awful lot real quick. So I'm almost in more of a fan and in favor of the slower build or the slower burn. And I feel like Lashley's been doing that more than Big E has. So if it's going to be one of them, and it can only be one of them, I'm going Lashley on that. Goldberg, F off. No way, please God. Not Goldberg, no. Anybody but him. Oh, God, I don't know if I want to have, Jessica, I don't know if I want to have guest hosts again on Monday Night Raw. I did not like those. There was every 1 out of 9 I would be okay with. One celebrity would do okay. Where, most of them phoned it in, didn't know what the fuck they were doing, didn't know anything about wrestling. They were just there. It was such a mess. A couple times, with the Hugh Jackman and some other guys that got involved, could be funny at times. But in terms of celebrity guest hosts, I don't want to see that again. But, maybe bringing back, legends to do it instead, and having Ted DiBiase and guys like that just host Raw 1 week. Sure. Why not? So if they were going to do that and I had to pick guest hosts, I pick wrestlers, former wrestlers. I'd rather see that. Drew versus Joe. I mean, what's Samoa Joe going to do? He's been sitting on commentary for a while. He would be a fun entrant, kind of like how Lawler did it back in the day when he was doing commentary and then his music hit and he got in the ring. Although he was used as a joke and just eliminated immediately in those situations. But it would be cool to see Joe do that, have his music hit, and he'd have to come out kind of early. Hopefully he could do all the stretching, backstage, or he could take a break or something like that and go and kind of get in shape a little bit and come out. And then his music can hit and he can take off his suit and he's wearing the shorts and everything, gets in the ring and maybe not wins it, but has a good showing, tosses a bunch of people out, maybe even during that, in the process of that, bumps heads or butts heads with somebody that, can maybe be an introductory program for him getting back on TV. But again, he's a guy that's been injury prone. He's a little bit past his prime working ability at this point. And for someone like him to win the Rumble and get a title shot at WrestleMania, I don't know if WWE would have the confidence in him to do that. I think they'd want him in the ring a little bit first, see how he does, and then potentially pull the trigger on that. If I'm in WWE, that's the way I'm handling it. But would at least love to see him in the Rumble as a surprise. Might be fun. Plus, he's awesome, He should come back at some point. Tiger Ziller Gama, there's a $5 super chat from you. Greg, how would you rank these 3 matches? Savage Steamboat Mania 3, Bret Austin Mania 13. Oh, Jesus Christ. Taker Mania 25. Jesus Christ, man. There's another question here in my email notes from, where are you? I just want to shout you out in case you're watching when I get to you. Samantha from Corpus Christi, Texas. Can't wait till I get to your question. It's kind of similar to this. Can I just name them all? Number 1, Savage and Steamboat, of course, has got a personal memory with me. I have a big Savage and Steamboat poster, nice print that my girlfriend bought me for my birthday. It's awesome that you guys can barely see. It's right next to Slick in the Blockbuster case up there on my shelf. And I was in the building for that, and I saw it, and it was widely regarded as the best match of all time for a long, long, long time. But then Bret and Austin came around and didn't really outdo what Savage and Steamboat did from an athletic sense, but from a storyline and telling a story, holy shit, did they. And it was the most successful double turn that's ever been done in wrestling. So you can't just shake that one off. And, of course, Taker and Shawn at Mania 25 is still a masterpiece to this day. So let's go. How do you want me to rank them? My favorites or which are actually truly the best matches? I'm going Taker, Shawn 1, Savage Steamboat 2, Bret Austin 3. Taker and Shawn at Mania is fucking great. I still love that match. Forever. WrestleMania 31 underrated? Is it underrated? I thought it was a good show. I've always spoke highly of it. I love the finish. I love Seth coming out and that, and the earlier match with Orton and Rollins with the big fucking RKO. Sting and Triple H was a letdown. Bryan won the IC title. I thought that was a good moment. Yeah, overall, WrestleMania is a good show. I'm not sure if people consider it to be underrated. My only complaint about WrestleMania is that it was out here on the West Coast, and it was outside, and it was light out for Sting's entrance. I thought that just killed it. So I think WrestleMania, just due to the theatrics of everything in the presentation and the spectacle that it all is, it helps to be in a dark environment or inside. So the stadium here in LA where WrestleMania was supposed to be this year, I'm not sure if the roof is a dome or see-through or lets light in. I don't know. But a couple years back at WrestleMania 26, it was in Arizona, kind of the same thing. It remained very, very bright in the stadium for the majority of the show. And I kind of don't think that's always good for the presentation of WrestleMania. But I live on the West Coast, so I want WrestleManias to be here. So that doesn't mean I don't want them here. But I thought 31 was very good. Do I love Roman Reigns? Like, am I in love with him? No, but yes, I love Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is the man. I've had his back ever since everybody hated him, and now I'm being proved right. Just like I was with Cena. Drew versus Jinder could be fun for storyline, but not at Mania, just in general. Just bring Drew back to Raw and give... Didn't they already do that? Didn't Drew face Jinder earlier on in the year? Maybe not. I don't fucking remember. But yeah, I think that could be a match that could be done for sure, but maybe not at a pay-per-view. Or not at a WrestleMania, I should say. Do I think Moxley was a better AEW champion than Jericho? Yeah, I do. I think he was a better champion. I think Jericho was the right guy to be the champion. I think he was entertaining as hell and a great champion and a great way to kickstart your company. But Moxley picked up the torch or the baton and ran with it hard. He was a great fighting champion and was awesome. His whole run was solid, and he did it in the pandemic era, and I think did it better than Drew McIntyre did. So yeah, I think he's better than Jericho. Karrion Kross versus McIntyre would be great, but Kross just got back. We'll see, you know, if WWE wants to springboard him to the roster and just, you know, skip over another NXT title run for him. He's going to be facing Damian Priest at New Year's Evil. I'm assuming that will lead to a title match, you know, but maybe he just has a couple of matches and wins in NXT and then shows up in the Rumble and wins it or something. Not out of the question. You know, they brought Keith Lee up before he even had a chance to really get cooking with his run. But if they do that same thing with Karrion Kross, I just hope that the same thing doesn't happen. I think it would be great if Kross could build a lot of momentum as a dominant Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns type champion down there, where he just kills everybody and not get injured this time. And then when he comes up, excuse me, then when he comes up to the main roster, he's got dream matches with everybody. Somebody like Randy Orton. Imagine Randy Orton and Karrion Kross button heads for the first time. That would be great. You know, Karrion Kross killing everybody. Oh, let's match you up against one of the best and see how good you are. Drew McIntyre's another one. Roman Reigns, lots of great people that Kross can work with, but I think it's going to work best if he can have some sort of long momentum where he's been dominant in NXT, not just brought up immediately. And WWE just has to show some restraint. You know, put the belt back on him. If that's what you're going to do against Finn Balor, let Finn Balor have another successful title defense against O'Reilly. And then whenever you lock them back up at the next takeover, have Kross win the title, go on a run, and then after the summer, talk about getting him up here. But not before then, you know, in my mind. John Cena versus Adam Cole. That would be an interesting match. You know what? That would be a good match, too. It would be a really good match. You know, but John Cena would be so overmatched in the strength department. I mean, Adam Cole definitely benches a lot more than John Cena. He'll probably just pick John Cena up and toss him all over the ring. Little weak-ass Cena. Jordan Smith, thanks, dude, for the $5. I appreciate it. 2021 should start out good with Cobra Kai and the Royal Rumble. I wonder what shocking moment will end season 3. Maybe Terry Silver and Mike Barnes. Yep, we got to bore everybody now with Cobra Kai talk. I won't do that. But yeah, I'm ready for that to come out on the 1st. I think there's going to be a cliffhanger at season 3, and I think those two would be it. Otherwise, you already got Chosen coming back and Kumiko and all sorts of other stuff happening here. To have those guys be introduced, and you have some people coming back like Kyler and shit. So to have those guys introduced like in the middle of the show would be weird. It feels like that could be a cliffhanger thing. In the teaser, they show Johnny busting down the door of Cobra Kai and kicking a door open. I think maybe that's like the final episode or the final scene. And he kicks the door open and he sees the 3 of them sitting there together. And then fucking season 4 is off and running. So yeah, I think you're right with that. Terry Silver and Mike Barnes will absolutely be on the show. It might just not come till the very end. I'm ready for that, man. It's going to be good. Yeah, I mean, imagine if Nakamura was not losing clean to Otis on SmackDown and Nakamura was still considered to be somewhat of an important deal. Nakamura and McIntyre would be fun, you know? It'd be a hard-hitting match. It'd be fun, too. I never really saw the next Karate Kid. I've seen parts. I was never really interested in the Hilary Swank. I know it's canon because, you know, Miyagi's in it. He mentions Daniel apparently in the movie, but to me, 3 was already I didn't really like Karate Kid 3 either because it was so long after the first movie and stuff, and they tried to play it off like it was 1 year later, but Daniel was like 35 years old when he was playing a high school senior. It didn't look right. So, or somebody just out of high school, or 17-year-old, I should say. So it didn't look right, and I didn't really like it, and it felt phoned in a bit, and he has a weird relationship with a girl in that movie that just seems like they didn't even need to have in there. They could have just left it out, and not my favorite movie. And so by the time they got to the next Karate Kid, I didn't even care, you know, by then. Still haven't seen it to this day other than a couple of spots watching Hilary Swank's karate skills. That's all I've really seen. Personal favorite Dark Side of the Ring episode, probably the Owen one. I don't want to say it was a favorite. It was hard to watch, but, you know, Owen and Benoit were the 2 big ones. I have those, by the way, on my channel. It's on my playlist of Best of 2020 right now. Chris Benoit and Owen Hart episodes from Dark Side of the Ring, full reviews on both. But those, obviously, you know, would be the 2. But they were good. The Road Warriors one was good. The Herb Abrams one was good. The Bruiser Brody one was good. I like the Dino Bravo one. They're all fantastic. And I'm really ready for for season 3. I'm not sure about any unification matches either. I'm going to knock out the super chat from AJ Daniels, and then I'll go back and answer some email questions here in a minute. And thanks for the $5, dude. Who do you think was more hated by the fans? That's a good question. Triple H during the Reign of Terror, Cena during his run on top, or Roman Reigns during the 2015-18 period? It's probably a tie. It really is. I mean, I lived through all those, especially the Reign of Terror. I remember so well. And I like Triple H. Everybody did. He tore the quad in 01, came back in 02, big pop at Madison Square Garden, won the title at WrestleMania. And then about a year later, once the relationship with Stephanie was out of the bag and all of that, and they got married, it just, fans immediately resented him. They felt he was going to get all his opportunities because he was married to her, and that became their primary focus. And they didn't really think that he actually is good. He has good matches. He carries himself like a champion. He's a student of the game. He's very knowledgeable from a history perspective in wrestling. He respects championships and respects the way champions should carry themselves, even as a heel. And to me, I always appreciated that from Triple H. He wasn't some, former football player that just got into wrestling to make some money. He wanted to be this his whole life. So I really had no problem with Triple H on top, but it got to the point there where he was winning a few matches where you felt like he was ripe. A lot of people hated the WrestleMania 19 match against Booker T, and then the big Elimination Chamber thing where Goldberg didn't win the title. That all added to it. And then, of course, from a political standpoint, Triple H is a Clique member, and, now he's in bed with the owner's daughter, and they just feel like everything's handed to him. And that's just it's going to happen from his peers too. Everybody in the locker room, had to deal with that. Triple H took a big risk there. A lot of people don't give him credit for the risk he took, because think about if the relationship with Stephanie wouldn't have worked out, which the way relationships go in wrestling, there was an excellent chance that was going to be the case. How many wrestling relationships stand the test of time? A very small percentage do. So had that gone south and not worked out, he might have had to go to WCW. Now he's going to be potentially the heir to the throne of Vince, but it could have easily been, he could have been starting TNA with Jeff Jarrett had things gone a different direction for him. So, but during his big run there when he was champ, and then he kept, retaining the title, and he was winning every match he was in. Some of them I didn't mind. I didn't mind him beating Scott Steiner. Fuck Scott Steiner. That didn't bother me. Even the Booker T match to a degree didn't bother me too bad, although I did feel like it would have been great had Booker T won the title that night. But the Goldberg stuff didn't bother me either, because I was never really a big Goldberg fan. I didn't give a shit if he won the title or not. So in terms of what they should have done, yes, they should have put the belt on him. And by the time they did the following month, it was like almost too late. And then Triple H would just turn around and win the belt back anyway, going into WrestleMania 20. But, you got to remember there too, he still put over Benoit in the main event. It was a triple threat. Most cynical fans would say, oh, Shawn is in there, so Triple H doesn't have to take the pin. Not only did Triple H, take the finish there, he tapped out with blood dripping down his face in the middle of the ring, clean as a baby's ass. So, it's not like he wasn't, it's not like he was unwilling to lose or anything like that. It felt like he was always willing to do business, and didn't really abuse his power that much, but the fans thought he did. So that was, he was extremely hated. But when you think about the really over the top, outlandish, because now we're into the internet or YouTube age and things like that, in the podcast era, the over-the-top, irrational hatred for John Cena was nothing like I've ever seen. Yes, fans hated Triple H. Some of it was justified, some of it wasn't, but it got taken to a whole different degree with John Cena, where if you liked him, it meant you sucked his dick. If you liked him, it meant you had his picture on your wall and you jerked off to it every night. And the only reason he gets these opportunities is because he kisses Vince's ass, and all these ridiculously loose, loose reasons why he sucks that are all easily disprovable, with a simple search, of a finger, a movement of a finger and stuff. And it was just really crazy. People wanted him to die. Die, John Cena, die. Wrestling will be so much better when you're dead. If Cena loses, we riot. Shit like that. And even when I started the YouTube channel, and I would I would never even go hardcore. It's not like I would rant and rave about defending John Cena. All I would do is mention the positives about him. Look at him. He keeps his nose clean. Think about how many wrestlers have been hooked on drugs and had personal problems and issues, and how fucked up Shawn was during his run, and how much drugs and alcohol and cocaine and everything would run through the roster. where you cannot rely on anybody and everybody was fucked up. Here you have a guy like John Cena who's well-liked, he's well-behaved, he's nice, he's kind to kids. You know, he does all sorts of promotional stuff for WWE. He makes an excellent poster boy. He keeps his nose clean, and considering wrestling's past and what just happened to Chris Benoit, he is a great representation of WWE. They can send him to the Tonight Show or send him somewhere on Regis or, you know, do a promotional spot, and they can trust him to carry himself like a professional, and they don't have to worry about him. And he was a great guy to carry the flag at the time, the perfect guy. But yet fans, you know, because they're so fucking immature about everything and they just hated his goofy promos and stuff, which I wasn't a fan of that either. John Cena is not a character that's designed for me to like them. You know, but as an adult, I can appreciate what he does as a professional. His character, fuck his character. It's not for me. But in terms of Cena, who he is as a guy, as a man, and the fact that even though he's not Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, or Bret Hart in the ring, every single year this guy's having match of the year candidates. Every single year, like clockwork. So where's your evidence that he sucks? You know, he only sucks in your self-absorbed tiny bubble brain in your little universe. And so that's what I was trying to convey during those times, but that came off as I was a John Cena lover and blah, blah, blah. And oh my God, good Mike works so stupid. And how could he say these things about this guy that's a cancer? Using cancer in the same breath to describe somebody like John Cena is the most fucked up backwards ass opinion I've ever heard in wrestling. So I think, AJ, the answer to your question is probably John Cena. It was bad with Roman Reigns, almost equally as bad, but didn't last quite as long because WWE, unlike Cena, they had the balls to try something with Roman, bring him back as a heel, and look how well it's paid off. As a matter of fact, Roman is paying off so well, it really makes you regret even more that they didn't pull the trigger with this on John Cena in 2013 at WrestleMania 29. Imagine if he would have fucking turned on The Rock, beat him silly, won the title, and came out the next night on Raw and told all the fans to go fuck themselves. That would have been an NWO forming in 1996 moment for wrestling in modern times. I think it would have been as big as that. And they completely dropped the ball, which only fueled the fans' anger and hate, including mine. As much as I defended Cena, I could not believe that they did not take advantage of a golden opportunity. It was sitting there in their lap on a platter to print money. And they chickened out because they got no balls. So the fact that they did change gears with Roman allows him now to avoid that stigma that Cena had. So between those three, it's got to be Cena. I've never seen any irrational hate as bad as that. I've never seen fans so unhinged, so completely oblivious to reality when it came to Cena, only because they're mad that he wins matches. Because he gets a 1-2-3 on somebody, they want him to die. Like I said, wrestling fans continue to be the worst. John Cena wins that. AJ Daniels. Who's next? JJ Leg, appreciate the $2. Hey, Greg, any chance of double NXT Rumble winners? No. Not right now. Not with maybe Rhea Ripley. I can see her. But on the men's side, no. I think if it would have been anybody, it would have been Keith Lee who'd still be there and come up and win now. I can't see Balor or Cole, although Cole would be cool. But again, you're talking title match at WrestleMania. I don't think that would be in the cards for Cole. Especially with, a lot of guys on the main roster, put their time in and stuff. I can see one. I can't see two. Devlin Husband, what's up? You're here. About time, dude. Thanks for the $5. Didn't watch Raw tonight. It's really hard to watch wrestling right now after the death of Brodie Lee. This one hit me hard. R.I.P. Brodie Lee. I know, man. It sucks. You and I were on the Jericho Cruise together around all of those AEW talents. Brodie was not there. It would have been cool if he was. I actually put in about 4 or 5 months ago, I put in a cameo request for Brodie to do an intro on the channel, and it got declined. He couldn't do it. He was busy or whatever the fuck. That would have been cool to have him do that. But the Brodie is just horrible because of how, like I said, how active and how featured he was on TV. He's a big part of AEW and their beginning and their growth. And of course, it was such a new beginning and a new chapter for him, spending all that time in WWE, much of that time being very frustrating for him. And then to have like this just new rebirth in AEW was a refresher for him. It gave him and it was an awakening, and he sunk his teeth into that role. And just to turn around and fall ill like that and die so suddenly is just fucking awful. I don't blame. Yeah, it was even tonight. Like when I was watching Raw, it was really hard. I mean, I was making my notes and stuff, but I mean, the last 72 hours have just been completely consumed by Brodie Lee. Like I said, we did the podcast on Saturday, the top 10 tag teams video. And the minute, like literally the second I clicked off the stream and we ended it, that's when the news broke. And I was in the car. I had to drive to work reading that. I had to go into work and work a few hours while knowing this news. And I mentioned a couple of things on Twitter, but I wasn't really able to come home, or I really wasn't able to read about this and all of the details about it until I got home. And then being able to see the tributes come out from, you know, the talent and everybody that he worked with in AEW and WWE, and, you know, everybody sharing their memories and their photos and their stories and their anecdotes about him was just, I've never seen an outpouring of support like this in the social media age. And we've seen a lot of deaths, you know, in the last, you know, since Twitter's been around. But this one is easily the biggest outpouring I've ever seen. It was just, it's crazy. It's still going on now, you know. If I go on Twitter right now, just look on my homepage. Right there, there's 3. One from Steven Larson. A couple guys I don't know. Picture of Brodie Lee and Bailey. So like it's everywhere. It's just, it's Brodie. Everything's Brodie. PWTs. Same thing. My God. I guess I should check my Twitter while I'm here too. Okay. Go follow me on the Twitters at Good Mic Work. Follow along. I lost 400 followers this year. I think because I shit on Donald Trump. Oops. But I went from 5,200 to 4,800 followers this year. So let's try to get me back above 5,000 again. Follow me if you have not yet already. Let's get back to the notes, back to the chat, back to the questions. Well, Jamie Rosano, which legends do I hope to return next Monday? We already have the list. I had the list last week. I read it all out to you. I can't remember off the top of my head. The only names I know for sure, Hogan, Flair. I know IRS is going to be there. $1 Million Man, Carlito, Alicia Fox, which are 2 random names. Slaughter's probably there. Hillbilly, Boogeyman, maybe. A lot of random legends. So I suppose they could have a surprise or 2 turn up. But in terms of which ones are going to be there, I think it's already kind of announced. And I'm not really that looking forward to it, because if The Undertaker's retirement was anything to go by, all those legends came out and didn't do jack shit. They came out of the ring and stood there and looked around and stuck a thumb up their ass and left. They didn't do anything. They didn't speak. They didn't stand in the ring with Taker or anything. So if they have the legends there, I think it's going to be a lot of backstage segments. R-Truth is going to do something fucked up with some of. I want to see who's there. I want to see R-Truth call someone the wrong name. Call IRS the $1 Million Man, or call Hillbilly Jim Hacksaw Jim Duggan, or, you know, something like that. Call the Boogeyman Booker T. I don't know. Have them do something weird with some of the legends. That will be fun. I'm sure we'll see a lot of backstage stuff. I'm sure a couple of heels will talk shit to some legends and they'll get slapped. Something will probably also happen in the ring. And like I said earlier, I think it would be really cool if the Fiend returned and attacked his daddy, IRS, and put the claw on the IRS like we would all really like to do. That would be fun too. I'd be into that. Devlin, thank you. Oh no, I got you already. Yep, gotcha. I already got yours. Did I miss anybody else? Okay, that was it there. Just want to see if there's any other questions I want to answer. How the fuck is Alicia Fox a legend? You know what? I'm going to defend Alicia Fox. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is she not the first Black women's Divas champion? I think. So that's something. She was there 10 years. For younger fans, you got to think, like, I'm 43 years old. I'll be 44 this year, you know? So for somebody like me, Alicia Fox is not considered a legend, but just put yourself in a 17-year-old shoes or a 16-year-old shoes. They were probably watching Alicia Fox when they were like 9, 10. Little kids don't know the difference between a good worker and a bad worker. You know what I mean? So she might have been an inspiration to some people. There might be some people getting in the business right now because they liked Alicia Fox. She did one move real well. What was the move she did real well? Was it a kick or something? She did something really well. Plus, she was pretty charismatic. She looked great. She was beautiful. And I really liked the Stone Cold Alicia Fox thing they were doing with her, where she would snap, you know, and I think they should have ran with that more. I think they should have made her like a really like unhinged Brian Pillman type of wrestler in the women's division. Somebody that you never knew what they were going to do, who would just be batshit whacking crazy. You know, that one year she was like the captain of the Survivor Series. She played off that captain shit for months. You know, she was always out there in her captain's hat and stuff. So I think had they put a little bit more creative effort into her character, she could have been even better. But I think Carlito was even funnier because Carlito was there like, what, 3 years or something? How long was Carlito in the company? Not very long at all. His family and his dad for sure is a legend. But Carlito, especially on the way that he left, even when he came back and remember the Colognes they put Carlos in the Hall of Fame, and he made some sort of dig during the induction about not being used right or something like that. So it seems like Carlito's wanted nothing to do with the WWE since leaving there. So them bringing him in as one of their random ass legends. All right. I mean, it's so curious to me that he would be brought back with these people. It makes me wonder if he's re-signed. Just like Melina, who I think is also on the list. We had heard that she had re-signed with the company, was going to be turning back up, and she never did. So why bring, maybe they do an angle next week where Carlito gets involved in something. Maybe they're bringing Carlito in. Maybe they're bringing him in to have a small run on TV, and then when he's done, trainer at the PC. I don't know, where's Carlito lives? He's still in Puerto Rico, and that's where he lives. He might not want to move to Florida, but, I guess it wouldn't be that far. Plane ride back and forth and stuff, but maybe they've signed him. I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know why the hell he's there. Weird. Jessica, what do I think about Walter? Walter's the man. Got that match he had a few weeks back. Jesus, that's still, my neck and jaw hurts just from thinking about that. Greg, do I like Tom Phillips? Sure, I like Tom Phillips. I like his voice. Remember when he got busted? I did a video on that like a couple years back when he got busted with the text messages. That was funny. But yeah, I like him. Yeah, exactly, AJ. I try to take that into perspective when you can't look at everything through your own eyes. People have to understand that wrestling has got a vast audience, very big and diverse audience, young, old, middle-aged, everything, man, woman, black, white. I mean, it's, the whole entire world is, aware of wrestling, and you have fans from all different shapes, sizes, and age groups and races and stuff. So, especially with the age thing, that's what I try to focus on more. When I think about somebody, I'm like, okay, I can understand why like back in the Cena days, I can understand why a 19-year-old hates Cena, because you're getting older now and you're entering into adulthood, and now you want to be all adult, and they're feeding you this kiddie nonsense. And I used to reference that back then. I said, I was the perfect age. I was that age. I was like age 20 through 26 or whatever during the Attitude Era. That's the best age to be for the Attitude Era. And when I was young, wrestling catered to me. That's how I'm literally the perfect age for wrestling, because when I was young in the 80s, it was geared towards me. And then when I was an adult and a young adult in the late 90s, it was also geared towards me. So a lot of fans missed out on that. A lot of fans, when, Cena started becoming so cheesy and funny and just childish and stuff, the fans are, a lot of the teenage and like adult fans and the 18 to 34-year-olds were fucking hating it because they were too young to enjoy the Attitude Era when it was the Attitude Era. They missed out. They probably had to go to bed before Raw came on. Their parents probably didn't let them watch it because they were just little fucking kids. They probably didn't get half the jokes on the Attitude Era anyway. So now that they're all grown up, and now they're giving kids shit, it pissed them off. And I kind of thought it was funny. And I used to like to make fun of them for that. I'm like, sorry, you're just not the right age for this shit. But I think a lot of that was what was fueling their anger. And I'm like, I guess if I was a little punk fucking kid, little punk fucking virgin with stinky armpits and, and piss and vinegar running through my veins, I would hate John Cena too. But as you get older, you kind of appreciate things from a different perspective. And that's at least why I try to look at things through more than one fan's eyes. And that's what I try to do there with Alicia Fox. There probably is a portion of the audience that really likes her. I've talked about in the past my favorite wrestling belts and stuff, and I've shit all over the undisputed title belt from 2002. Many of you have said that's your favorite belt of all time because that's the era that wrestling was most impressionable to you. Those were during your impressionable years. If that was the belt when I was 12, I'd probably fall in love with it too, but it wasn't. That one was the Winged Eagle title over there. So it's different for everybody, and everybody has their different takes and perspectives on wrestling. And, that's what you have to think about. You can't just say, like some asshole was saying in the chat, oh, AEW sucks. Well, clearly not. AEW has a lot of fans. I have AEW merchandise right there. I got an AEW hoodie right here. I watch Dynamite every Wednesday. Doesn't suck to me. Just because it sucks to you doesn't mean it sucks for everybody. You are not the center of the universe. And a lot of fans have that opinion. What they want is what everybody should want. No, dumbass. Doesn't work that way. There's nearly 8 billion people on this planet, not just you. And unfortunately, the fans kind of have that self-centered opinions about everything. This guy's good, and this who's good, and this is good, blah, 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 you know, shit like that. Ultimate Warrior 89 or Goldberg 98? Holy shit, Randy Watson. That's tough. Goldberg 98. Goldberg 98. Yeah, can't believe I'm saying that. Yeah, Ultimate Warrior 89 wasn't champ yet. Goldberg 98 was. So I'm going Goldberg. Because Ultimate Warrior, I mean, Goldberg just had that. He also, like, when he first came in, he almost had that, like, shoot fighter look to him, where Warrior didn't have that. Warrior was a comic book character. Goldberg looked like he could legitimately kill you, even though he couldn't. Jericho took him down with a front face lock. Michael Burnett, you've been a wrestling fan since 1991. Happy 30th anniversary coming up for you. I got about 10 years on you, but we're close. We're very close. Favorite title was the Divas title. Jesus Christ. Jordan, what was my favorite non-WrestleMania Undertaker match? I might have to give that one some thought. I liked Highway to Hell with Austin. Shit. Hell in the Cell, Bad Blood. I'm sorry, Bad Blood, Shawn. That would be it. Bad Blood, Shawn. Easily. Life of Brandon's back. I'm glad to see that. Let me go back over here and knock out some more emails because I've only answered a few of these so far. Barry, you're still here. You sent one in email too. I read that today. What do you think of a Hell in the Cell match in 2004 with Lita and Trish? Would it be a good idea or no? For 2004, I'm going to say no. I think if any women in the company at all could even come close to pulling a match like that off, it would be them. They would be the two right ones to do it. But I just didn't feel. I don't feel like they could do what a Charlotte and a Sasha could do in there. Or who else has had one? Becky. Who else has had a Hell in the Cell? Had a couple of them. And plus, at that time, I don't think it was. They weren't ready. And Hell in the Cells were different in 2004. You got to remember that as well. Hell in the Cell matches fit in a lot better with the women now because Hell in the Cell is turned into kind of a joke. The thing looks like a fucking toy now. They're a lot less bloody than they used to be. You know, think about the blood-stained matches we had in 2002 with Brock and Taker. I think Jericho and Triple H, Triple H and Batista had a bloodbath. Jericho and Triple H might have as well. A lot of those matches were extremely brutal. You know, Mick Foley nearly died a couple of times. And in 2004, the matches were still like that. And so for Trish and Lita to go in there, if it was a 2020 version of Hell in the Cell, then yeah, I think Trish and Lita would have been fine. But in 2004, I think it wouldn't have held up in terms of the matches we were getting out of the men. The matches we're getting out of the men are still good. It's just they're not as bloody. They're not as gritty, as dirty as they used to be back around this time. So I don't think in 2004, Lita and Trish would have had a very good Hell in the Cell match. I'd vote no. I want to say hello as well to Rabat from Derby, England. He writes in, I hope you're doing well and keeping safe. I wanted to ask you if you think Triple H deserves the hate he gets regarding his breakup with Chyna, or do you think it's overblown? Now, this might tie in a little bit to what I was talking about earlier with how the fans disliked Triple H during his reign of terror. So it's going to kind of be like a combination yes and no answer. I think we don't know the full, exact, total story, except for what Chyna has told us. And as much as we love Chyna and miss her and are horrified by how she passed away as well, she, during some of these interviews, you don't know if you can really take her at face value. She was burned. She was scorned, and she had a lot of problems and demons, and, alcohol and drugs were a big part of her life. And she might've been, from a mental perspective, maybe not that stable when she told a lot of these stories. Not that it's all completely untrue, but might be a skewed perspective a little bit. So from her point of view, sounds like Triple H was a real son of a bitch. And I'm sure that he partly was, because he was with Chyna and he did fall for Stephanie. There was a breakup there, but then again, that happens in life. Now, the only way Triple H would really get any hardcore hate from me is if he was sneaking around with Stephanie behind Chyna's back, and how much of that really went on. And I don't think, from what we've been told, a whole lot of it went on. I think it was, he kind of ended, I don't think he was trying to play both of them. I think he ended things with China and then started things up with Stephanie, and then Vince kiboshed that and they were separated and then they got back together. I think he was done with China by then. I don't think he was really sneaking around, but I do think I do think he fell for Stephanie while being with China. So that happens in life. It's horrible, but it fucking happens. So you can't blame somebody for who they fall in and out of love with. And you certainly can't speculate and assume that Triple H just got with Stephanie to set him for life, because it could have easily not gone that way. Like I said, Triple H took a bigger risk than people give him credit for, starting a relationship with Stephanie, because if the most important thing to him is his wrestling career, he's playing with fire here. It could easily go south, and his whole career, could been the exact opposite of what it turned out to be. So luckily for him, it worked out in the long run. But I'd say, there are probably some parts of that he did not handle properly. In terms of, it being so public, and Triple H and Stephanie and China all being on TV, China leaving the company as a result of this, and all of that kind of bad blood and stuff. And then China went down a really dark path, and I think she blamed Triple H for a lot of that. But, then again, what do you want them to do? If you're not in love with somebody, what do you want them to do? So it just depends on the situation. So I say yes and no. I think people that blame him for everything that happened to China are wrong. It's not all his fault. He has any right to love and not love whoever he wants. But, if he did anything, kind of dirty, or did China dirty in any way, snuck around behind her back, which then triggered her into this, dark road, then yes, he does deserve a little bit of a blame for that. But I think overall it's overblown, but not that he gets off scot-free either, because it was just a fucked up situation overall. I think he has his regrets, and I think Stephanie has regrets the way that went down. Absolutely. But, I don't think it's completely his totally 100% fault is basically what I'm saying. I'm trying to erase these questions as I do them so I don't repeat them. I want to shout out as well another email question from Christopher Mace. What would be the one matchup in 2021 that you haven't seen yet in wrestling that you would want to see? Keep up all the good work that you do. So that's a tough one to answer, because it would have to be a match that, we haven't seen yet, and we've seen a lot of them. So based on what I can think of right now, we've mentioned a couple of these already earlier on. Lashley and Brock Lesnar, still a match we haven't got yet that I still think there's time to do, especially now that Lashley is not a joke anymore and he's not running through obstacle courses with Sami Zayn. He actually means something. He's actually winning matches, and he's actually dominant. They got a chance to do that now. So I'm going to do Lashley and Brock. Also, maybe like The Fiend and Karrion Kross. Maybe sometime in 2021, after Cross has a nice run with the NXT title, hopefully The Fiend doesn't lose any more overseas matches to Goldberg or fucking Ric Flair prior to then. And if you can have those guys maybe cross paths later on in the year, next year around Survivor Series time, could be a lot of fun. And also the Demon versus The Fiend. We never did get the Demon versus The Fiend, did we? So I'd be into that as well. Maybe those three, although we did get Balor versus The Fiend. So maybe that doesn't count. Those are the only ones off the top of my head I can think of, other than potentially maybe Edge and The Fiend or somebody like that, or Edge and anybody, because Edge came back and he's only really worked with Orton, right? So if he came back, he'd have an opportunity to maybe work with an AJ Styles or maybe a Drew McIntyre. Edge has got a lot of potential opponents, maybe even a Roman Reigns. And like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if they want to maybe move Edge to SmackDown when he does return. Maybe at first he's back on Raw, but maybe he winds up on SmackDown. Hell, maybe Edge wins the Royal Rumble. I don't know, but Edge would have to be in that conversation as well, for sure. Marie from Perth, Australia. She writes in and wants to know who would win these three dream matches. These are nuts. These are the three dream matches she's got. 2017 AJ Styles versus 1994 Razor Ramon. 2020 Drew McIntyre versus 1991 Sting. That's a really interesting one. And 2020 Roman Reigns versus 1989 Randy Savage. Holy shit. Let's take these one at a time. 2017 AJ versus 1994 Razor Ramon. That would be a really good match. That would be a really good match. I think they'd work well together because Scott was so, he was pretty athletic for a big guy back then. AJ could fucking bump around like a madman for him. They were both like really at their peak around that time. AJ athletically, arguably could have been better a couple years prior to this, but he was in the WWE now in the big time. So that's an excellent year choice for AJ. But I'm going to go AJ Styles on that only. And it's almost like a tiebreaker. I think it's an equal matchup other than one factor. AJ was champion in 2017. Right? Wasn't he? Or he won the title in 2017? Or did he win it in 2016 from Ambrose? Oh, no, and then he won in 2017 too, right before the Survivor Series. So AJ had already been champion and was champion again by 2017. Razor Ramon, and I've said this for years, Scott Hall is on my short list of like 3 people, the best wrestler to never win a world title. So Scott didn't really get there. And he was at his prime in 94 with the Razor gimmick and the, 4-time or 5 or 3-time Intercontinental Champion by that point. But against AJ, I think AJ would edge him out just a bit. The other match, 2020, McIntyre versus 1991 Sting. God damn. I'm going 91 Sting. I think he was super duper crazy over around that time. Already had a run with the title. Previously, he had a couple of matches with Flair that really got him on the map by that point, especially in 1990. And then 2020 Drew, although he's got a short run on top as well, I think Sting's was more memorable, and I think Sting was more over. So I'm going Sting on that one. And then that last one's crazy. 2020 Roman Reigns versus 1989 Randy Savage. Who the fuck do you guys have in that? Savage is my second favorite wrestler of all time. I would pick him to win over anybody. But 2020 Roman Reigns is pretty much my favorite thing going right now currently. And in terms of where they are or who they are, excuse me, in their characters, Roman Reigns is supremely confident. He's not afraid of anybody. He demands that everybody acknowledge him as the man in the company and the man in wrestling. And, he's Hollywood Hogan now. Savage was equally as intense, and he doesn't back down from anybody. And could you see 1989 Randy Savage with Sensational Sherry by his side, cutting a face-to-face promo with Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman there, and see the dynamic between Heyman and Sherry and Macho? Oh, you think you're the tribal chief? Oh my God, his veins sticking out of his neck. Can't you imagine that? That would be fantastic. I think that's almost an equally matched deal, but I'm going to pick Roman Reigns because Roman, by an 89, Randy Savage had dropped the belt to Hogan. He was the Macho King by that point, doing some shit with Zeus. He wasn't on top in 89. Roman was on top. He was working with top guys, but he wasn't on top. He wasn't the champ. Roman is. Roman is the champ. Roman is the man right now. So that's the only thing getting him out of that match with Randy Savage. So I'm going to go AJ over Razor, Sting over McIntyre, and Roman over Randy Savage. My God, it hurts my heart to say that. But if it was 88 Randy Savage, might have been a different story. But 89 Randy Savage, I'm going Roman Reigns. Ernie from Paterson, New Jersey writes in, my question, was there a Bret Hart match you enjoy watching in the WCW? Not many. Bret came in and was a complete flop right from the start. Oh, you have a second question too. And what match made you a big Bret Hart fan, and why was that? So to answer your first one, was there a Bret Hart match that I did enjoy in WCW? Yes. I'd say both matches with Benoit were very good, especially the Owen Hart tribute match with Benoit. That was very touching and very hard to watch and very hard to get through and very good. And I believe he also beat Benoit in the finals of that tournament, right, to win the heavyweight title finally. So I'd vote that one as well for the best Bret matches ever, because even though by the time he won the title, it was just so too late, at least he won it, and he won it against a pretty credible opponent. And, former Stampede guy in Benoit. So those were good. And maybe the Flair match. I remember when Bret first got there, I think the first pay-per-view match he had was against Flair. I want to say it sold out. And that was the first time they had that match since, the 92 match where Bret beat him for the title in the WWE. So to see them come back together 6 years later, 5.5 years later, was pretty cool. And even though the match wasn't good, it was cool to see in a WCW ring, I suppose. So I'd probably go with those three. And if you guys have another one, feel free to throw them out there. But I know he worked with, Booker T a few times, and he worked with Hogan in the ring a little bit. I know he worked with Savage and Piper and Luger, worked with all those guys, but none of those matches stand out to me at all. I know he had a run with the U.S. title at least twice and did some stuff, but really, not really. He didn't do much that didn't impress me in WCW. Such a shame. And what match made you a big Bret Hart fan? Not one match in particular made me a Bret Hart fan, but I definitely know it would have been during the Bulldogs program, because that was so good. Even with the Harts chasing the title, like I mentioned the other night in the tag teams video, even before they won the belts and feuded with the Harts, the matches they were having on TV was good, and I think are really good. And I think that's when I started to take notice of Bret specifically, because he was taking some hellacious bumps. He was doing some things in the ring that I hadn't seen. He does this really good spot. He's done it in other matches where he basically goes for a high cross body but the opponent moves out of the way and he just ties himself in the ropes and just gets himself hung in the ropes. And I remember the first time I saw that I was just like amazed. I'm like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. So it wasn't a big spot now, but for then it was a big deal. So I think I became aware of how much I like Bret prior to them winning the titles. And it was around the time that the Bulldogs had just won the titles as well. They were having just matches all the time on TV. So somewhere in there was when I officially became a Bret fan. And I was on board that train and I never got off. I'm still on that shit. Fucking still in the back seat. All right, let's cruise back over here to the regular chat and see if there's any more questions I can knock out over here. Pretty good audience in here tonight. I'm happy that it wasn't a shitty audience. Thanks for hanging out. And be sure you subscribe if you've not yet already and smash that thumbs up for me if you don't mind as well. I appreciate it. Oh, Cena and Austin. But that's just me talking. That's my fan in me talking. You know, when you compare resumes, you know, Cena's done a lot more. He's a lot more athletic. He's a lot stronger. You know, but Austin's Austin. Nobody's beating Austin. I like this one from Lee Pate. Lee Pate. I have a friend named Brian Pate, and I call him Pate. Brian Pate. 1998 RVD versus 1996 HBK. God damn. 1996 HBK. As good as 98 RVD was, what year was his match with Jerry Lynn? Was that 98? I think it was. God, RVD was so good then. My God. And RVD and Shawn did finally get to wrestle. They wrestled on Raw, I think, in like 02. But those would have been the better years. But I don't think there was any better than 96 HBK at that time. I mean, he was best. So I'm going to go HBK. But that match would be fun to watch for the most part. I mean, a lot of people pick wrestlers for dream matches that are very similar. Sometimes that's not always the way. And as a matter of fact, earlier from the question I got earlier from Marie or whoever it was about AJ Styles and Razor Ramon. That was one of the reasons I liked that match that she picked, because I'm like, oh yeah, those two guys aren't similar. It's not like AJ and Shawn or AJ and Eddie or something like that. It's a big guy and a little guy, both very athletic, both very good. That match is probably going to be better. You know, so if they're really, really, really similar, sometimes that doesn't always translate into the best match. But their styles were different enough that I think that would be a good match. You know, frog splashes and split-legged moonsaults, that really wasn't what Shawn did. So they would have put on a masterpiece, I'm sure. My God, imagine that. Imagine RVD and Shawn Intercontinental Ladder match, SummerSlam or something in 98. Holy fuck. That would have been a good one. You do not want to see RVD versus Shawn Michaels whatsoever? Well, you won't now. You don't have to worry. That match isn't happening now. But back in the day, it was pretty good. And definitely a dream match. I feel like I scrolled too far down. I'm missing something. Nope. Got all you. Ha. Chris Ludecki. Yeah, it's probably Bret Hart's famous promo in WCW. The famous El Dandy promo that he got. I remember the first time I saw that promo. Interesting story. I bought, I was still at the tail end of my tape trading stuff, but now, you know, it's early 2000s. I think it was eBay is where I got it, and I bought a 9 DVD set just on burned DVDs of every single, and I'm not exaggerating here, every single Bret Hart match and promo of all time that made TV. Anything Bret Hart related that was on TV, whether it be the smallest promo or the smallest match or whatever, including pay-per-view matches, TV matches, everything was on this 9 DVD set. The problem is the quality was terrible. I popped these DVDs in. It's all, you know, recorded off of live TV and, you know, probably copied a bunch of times from WWE or from DVD to DVD. So it was pixely and fucked up in a lot of spots, but it was cool to have like every single promo. And it included also like 2 or 3 shoot interviews that he did right after the screw job. So I picked it up off of eBay. And I was just skimming through it, just putting DVDs in and just seeing what was on there. And I came across that El Dandy promo that I had not seen. I didn't remember it from WCW, never saw it when it happened. I think it was 99 with like Mean Gene on Thunder or something. Never saw it, was never aware of it. Didn't even know it existed until I put that DVD in and saw it. And now it turns out to be one of the most famous Bret Hart promos of all time, where he really put over El Dandy. I think Bret was a heel and he was trying to get easy opponents for himself. And I remember me and my roommate, Jason, we used to we used to laugh our asses off at El Dandy because he had that like kind of curly kind of hair. He just looked hilarious. He just had a funny look to him. He didn't look like a wrestler. And we just always laugh. He was a great wrestler. He passed away too. Didn't El Dandy pass away? But we always just got a kick out of the way he looked for some reason because he just looked so funny. So when Brett cut that promo on El Dandy, that was great shit. Oh, Lee, there you are again with the RVD. I answered that one earlier, but I didn't see that you sent in a $3 super chat as well. Really, really appreciate that, man. Justin Kongling, thanks for the $5. Give 2020 a middle finger. And Stunner, Randy versus Rock 03 through 04. We just missed it in the first third generation versus third generation match, or even still, I want 02 Brock versus 02 Triple H. I thought when Randy got on the map, they would prime him for Rock because I thought he was going to be the replacement for The Rock. He wasn't going to be as good as The Rock, obviously, but third generation guy, tall, good tan, good looking, can talk a little bit, wore the expensive clothes and shit like that. He kind of had a little bit of a resemblance to The Rock, even though charisma-wise, it was completely night and day between the two of those guys. But it was definitely a match that you almost thought of immediately upon Randy Orton entering and getting on the map with Evolution, winning the IC title. You thought, I'm like, Randy and Rock. I mean, they did technically have a WrestleMania match together at 20, but and I know they were in the ring scrapped a little bit, but if we got that program, if we got the actual match, that would have been something else. Could have been good. Do I like Matt Hardy or Jeff Hardy more? I don't know. Probably Jeff. I'm more excited with Jeff's matches. I'd probably say Jeff. I like Matt. I like Matt a lot. Proud of Matt. Things weren't looking too good for him for a while there, and look at him now. Family, 3 kids. Rebby got him on that leash. She kept Matt alive. Rebby's nuts. She's crazy, but without her, Matt Hardy might not be here, so you got to respect her for that. Sasha Banks versus Lita. That would be a good match. Going Sasha. I think Sasha's more seasoned at this point than Lita was. Yes, Rich Carey won. Rest in peace, the father of the Wyatt family. If you want to hear all my thoughts on Brodie Lee, just scroll back to the beginning of this podcast. We opened up the show pretty much talking about him and did a nice little tribute and talked about all of that at the beginning of the podcast some 3 hours ago. We're about 3 hours in here, and I still got a handful of questions and emails to answer, and I'm going to be doing some here. So this might turn out to be a 4-hour stream after all. What do I think should have happened if Luger won at WrestleMania 10 and not Brett? I thought that's what they were going to do. Like, I remember looking back, I'm like, oh, fuck, they're going to do this, and they're going to make him like Hogan, and I was such a big Bret fan, and I became so resentful. I was such a little shithead back then, man. I was so I hated Lex Luger, honestly, was the first babyface I ever despised. There was plenty of baby faces that I wasn't a fan of or didn't care about. I never flat out hated any baby faces at that age. Luger was the first one. I was like, get this fucking guy out of Bret Hart's way. Goddamn, Vince McMahon, with your stupid shit and what you think it gets over and stuff, made me so mad. So I felt like it was a miracle. I felt like it was the miracle of all miracles the night of WrestleMania 10 when Bret won the title. Not only was I immensely happy and just jumping for fucking joy that he won the title, I was almost in disbelief and shock, because it just felt like it was going to be Luger. I should have seen the writing on the wall. The big title change is going to come in the main event, So I was thinking, and when Bret won the coin toss or lost the coin toss, and then he was going to get the second shot of the title, that means Bret's automatically closing the show. And I can't see him. And then he lost to Owen. What's he going to do? Go in and lose the next one to Yoko or Lex? The Lex Bret match would have been pretty cool if that was the main event. But for Lex to beat Yoko and then beat Bret, giving Bret 2 losses at WrestleMania, that would have been enough to put me into a mental institution. I would have gone absolutely ballistic if that happened. But I should have seen, after the way fans reacted to him at the Royal Rumble and they kind of booed Lex and they rejected him, I should have seen that was going to happen, that WWE was going to change their mind. But I was so paranoid that he was going to win. I was so shy. I've never been happier when Bret won that night. It was one of my favorite pay-per-views ever. Ever. Randy Watson, appreciate the $5. Could you please break down a Mania 18 card if everyone came over from WCW? I think it would have been the best Mania ever. Yeah, I mean, I can do it off the top of my head, but I mean, I'd have to write down to really think about good stuff, but think of the people that weren't there, WCW-wise. Flair, Hogan, Goldberg, Nash, Hall. Well, no, Nash, Hall were there by then, and so was Hogan, for that matter. But so who was left? Goldberg and Flair was there too. So really, at that point, all they were really missing was Goldberg. Everybody else had gotten there. So maybe Mania 17 would be better or something like that. But by the time Mania 18 got there, I think you're thinking more in terms of like the invasion. Like if that would have been the case, you could have had Bischoff coming, because Bischoff wasn't quite there yet at Mania 18. He would come in a couple months later, I think in the summer, June maybe. But if you in 2001, if you had had Flair, Hogan, Bischoff, Nash, Hall, Goldberg, Sting is a huge one. Again, and he would have been very useful at WrestleMania 18. You could have Sting and Austin or something. You could have Hogan, Rock, Sting, Austin, or Sting Taker would have been better. Probably a better opponent for Austin than him. So Sting Taker would have worked. You guys tell me. And Kurt Angle on the show. I think Benoit was still injured, but he came back shortly after. Eddie Guerrero was there. By that point, he was about to be released soon after that. But yeah, there's a lot of great matches they could have done. And like I said, even on the WWE side during the invasion angle, they could have used Triple H. They could have used Benoit. They could have used Lawler. They could use a lot of guys that were out. It's a bummer. Chris, thanks for $5 more, dude. I appreciate it. Is it true that Vince changed his mind about Luger when he heard the reaction for Luger or for Brett over Luger at the end of the Royal Rumble 99? I think so. I think WWE just collectively changed their mind, because I remember that night. I could not believe they went with a tie, and WWE was so chicken shit. Because if you see that now, what happened with Cena and Batista a few years later, Vince came out to the ring, blew both of his knees out, and told him to restart the match. Why didn't they just restart the fucking match? They had all those referees in there, Jack Tunney, everybody had to sort it out. All you had to do was ring the bell and have them finish. But instead, they made this huge deal. They did a double winner because WWE's too chicken shit to choose, one of their big two baby faces. But yeah, you remember that night, and I remember that night being so mad. Like I said, I hated Luger, so when they both climbed up to the ropes and saluted the fans, and you hear all the boos for Luger and the cheers for Brett, I was like, see, Brett is the man. The fans fucking don't want Luger. They actually booed his ass. So I think Vince might have changed his mind there. I'm sure he did, but I think a lot of people would have been telling him too, hey, did you hear that? It's not like now where they boo and Vince just pushes them anyway. Back then, I think he actually cared a little bit. So, when they realized that Brett was clearly the more over of the two, they went with Brett. The right call was made. Common sense prevails. It's not something you really hear about very often in WWE these days. Yeah, we definitely should have gotten Hogan, Justin. We definitely should have gotten Hogan and Brett at SummerSlam 93. That would have been amazing. Let me cruise over here, knock out some more email questions. By the way, still time to win the Brodie Lee t-shirts. I should be showing you guys. I let you guys know earlier on. Got 2 giveaways to do tonight, and we're going to be giving away t-shirts. The first one is going to go to whoever sends in the highest super chat of the night. All of your money will be donated directly to Brodie Lee's family, and you will receive the Brodie Lee t-shirt. The other t-shirt, by the way, it's this one right here. If I can put it in, it's this guy here. And also, everybody else that has sent a super chat tonight, you're all going to be put into a randomizer. I'm just going to draw a name. You'll win the shirt as well. And all you'll need to do is, once I announce the winner, which I will do, I think on YouTube, maybe tomorrow on the community tab. So just check my YouTube channel. I'll have a post up with the winner. And then from there, just email me your address and shirt size, and I will get that into the mail to you right away, in case you're wondering. Still time to do that. Back to my email questions here. Christopher, I got you. I got to delete that one. Let's see. I like this one. This one's pretty good. This one's from Gino from New Orleans, Louisiana. What's up, good mic work? I've been a fan since 2012. Holy shit. I'm a big fan of your work. My question is, what 2 4-man factions would you have liked to see in a War Games match? That's interesting. I think in WCW, most of the factions got in there. NWO was in one. Horseman is one, of course. Who else did they have big faction-wise over there? I guess maybe the West Texas Rednecks weren't or whatever, but a lot of the War Games matches back in those times were just like a compilation of teams. Team WCW or, Road Warriors and Dusty and, things like that. So in terms of factions, I got to look at simply WWE. Nation of Domination comes to mind, kind of like the Hurt Business now. They'd be awesome in a War Games match. But the Nation of Domination, like the one later, not the Savio and Crush one, but like Farouk and Rock and Mark Henry and Godfather, guys like that. That would be great. And D'Lo for that matter. They would be great to see in the Elimination Chamber. The Hart Foundation as well. Brett, Jim, Owen, and Davey kicking ass. Brian Pillman going nuts on the outside of the ring, climbing up the cage, fucking distracting everybody, throwing shit in the ring and stuff. They'd be great. And maybe even like the DOA. I hated those factions like the DOA and the Bariquas and shit, but the DOA, you know, Brian Lee was in there and the Harris twins and stuff, and you fucking put Undertaker with them. They might have made a pretty fun faction to go into a War Games match as well. Kind of fits them, fits their look, fits their style. But I'd probably go Nation of Domination and Hart Foundation at the top of my list. If you guys have recommendations and there's a faction I'm forgetting, let me know. But in terms of a faction, those are really the only ones. I can think of plenty of foursomes, you know, put 4 wrestlers together and throw them in there and have them do their thing. But in terms of factions, Nation and Hearts easily. Chris Andrade, thank you as well for the email, and I appreciate that. He writes in, thank you for all your podcasts. They are a bright light in this dismal time. I appreciate that. My questions are, what wrestler made you become a wrestling fan? Is your first one, and the second one, is your girlfriend a wrestling fan? Is she going to be involved with your show one day? In terms of what wrestlers made me a wrestling fan, I'd probably have to go back as far as Dusty Rhodes and Superstar Billy Graham. Like I said, that was my first flashbulb memory of wrestling, was seeing pictures of them. And as a kid, not quite sure what it was. Like, I wasn't like, as a toddler, I'm like, what the... Billy Graham is being choked out and hung over the top ropes by a bull rope. I had no idea what the fuck I was looking at, you know, and then I kind of understood a little bit what wrestling was, started watching it on TV. But then when I got old enough to like absorb it, by then Hogan was there, Piper was there, and guys like that. So I'd probably say Hulk Hogan, even though as an adult, he never turned out to be, I don't look back on him as one of my all-time favorites. He was a big presence, you know, in my early life and becoming a fan, and probably Rowdy Piper as well, because Piper was a big part of that era. I'd also put Randy Savage on that list. And of course, Bret Hart. But by the time I fell in love with Bret, I was already a huge wrestling fan. I didn't need Bret to convince me. Bret's my favorite wrestler of all time, but he didn't make me a wrestling fan. I was a fan prior to him coming on the scene. So, you know, probably Dusty, Superstar, Piper, and Hogan. Be a kind of a combination of them. Maybe a little bit of Backlund. I remember Backlund, but it was kind of indifferent to him too. Snuka, Jimmy Snuka was a big deal to me because he was, you know, prior to Hogan, he was going to be their Hogan, I think. Snuka was like one of their biggest stars back in those days. Might have been why he was never charged for murder up until the very end of his life there. So I'd say those guys for sure. And in terms of my girlfriend, is she a wrestling fan? Yes, she's an awesome wrestling fan. I can't believe I've happened to come across a wrestling fan. I love you, honey. And it's funny. I always joke. This is a comparison to Seinfeld episode. Her name is Elizabeth, and she doesn't even like to go by Liz or anything like that. She likes to be called Elizabeth. Who's my second favorite wrestler of all time? Randy Savage. Who is his wife? Miss Elizabeth. So I get to call her Miss Elizabeth, and it's funny. And there's a Seinfeld episode. For those of you who watch Seinfeld, you know how Jerry Seinfeld loves Superman. And he even incorporates that into the show. He's a big Superman fan. Well, in one of the episodes, he dates a Lois. And so every time they go somewhere or meet up, he's like, "Hi, Lois. You ready to go, Lois? How's it going, Lois? How you doing, Lois? Are you hungry, Lois?" And then she's like, "You really like to say my name, don't you?" And it's because because he likes the name Lois. And even Elaine is like, "So you're dating a Lois?" And he's like, "Finally," or whatever. So kind of reminds me a little bit of that. But not only that, she's great. She's a big wrestling fan. She went with me to the Jericho Cruise, and she loves to watch wrestling. She loves to learn. She asks me a ton of questions. She'll just watch wrestling and past shows by herself and try to educate herself. We watch the wrestling Wednesday night shows together every single week. And she's my biggest fan and supporter on the podcast and does a lot for me. And she really took care of me on Christmas. She got me some of these t-shirts. Check out this one. This is a fucking Ico Pro t-shirt. She got me great old school t-shirts. Check this one. This one might be the best one of all time. Ringmaster Steve Austin. She got me that one. And there's also one. Oh, it's way over there. Probably the best one of all. This one is Dr. Isaac Yankem, DDS. So she always takes care of me, buys me cool stuff. I've got a big Undisputed Era throw blanket here that's going to go up on the wall. She gave me a big piece of artwork that's right over my head, right there. that she got. That's a big character, a cartoon of like, I don't know, 200 different wrestlers or something like that. A nice little print. She's always bought me a ton of wrestling related stuff, and she is the absolute best person to date if you're a wrestling fan. So she's great. She's interested in wrestling. She enjoys it. She wants to go to stuff. We were supposed to go to WrestleMania this year and have a great time. That's obviously not going to happen now here in LA, but we'll be on the road and we'll be doing stuff. Once life gets back to normal, I'll be taking her around with me. And I think there's a really good chance she'll turn up in a video one day. She's kind of showed interest and hesitation, kind of both. Maybe it's just a little hesitant to be on camera, but at the same time, I think she'd like to. So I think maybe for the Royal Rumble or something, maybe I'll put the camera over here on the couch, and because I got the TV on the wall, and maybe we'll react to it together or something like that. We'll see. But if you want to get a little introduction to her and her name and what she looks like, check out my Jericho Cruise video that I put up, a big review of the cruise, about 40 minutes long. It's on my channel. I did it back in January, and you'll get in a little introduction into her there. But yeah, she's the best. I don't know what I'd do without her. We live in this great house together, and she is very, very supportive, you know. And when I was single there and doing the commentaries and stuff, I'm like, you know, at some point, you know, after my marriage, I'm going to start dating again, and somebody's going to have to accept this crazy fucking life, and they're going to think I'm a goddamn weirdo. Not only does she not think I'm a weirdo, she embraces it, supports it, and wants me to do it as much as humanly possible. So, luckiest guy in the world, that's for sure. But hopefully you'll see her. I'm trying to incorporate more things onto the channel. As a matter of fact, me and my buddy Daniel, who might be here in the chat or not, although it's very late where he lives, so probably not, he's going to come on and we're going to record a Zoom call very soon. That'll probably be up in January. I wanted to get it done for the holidays. But I kind of asked him, you know, I'm like, hey, since me and you have been to so many shows together during the Attitude Era, we've experienced a lot of stuff, and I've talked about a lot of stuff throughout the years. There's probably a whole different set of memories and insight that he could offer if we came up here and talked about all the shows we went to. So I'm in preparation of making some notes, put it together. We're going to write down all of our memories and the shows we went to and what we did and the people we met and the things we saw, and any sort of like anecdotes or stories or fun, you know, fun little tales from the road back in those days. And we're going to share it with you guys. So that'll be coming up soon, probably in the next month. Like I said, we're just going to record a Zoom call and I'll upload it to the channel at some point. And I think that's going to make some different fun content for the channel. And if that goes well, I want to try to do, you know, more guests, because I know some of my fellow YouTubers who I've already talked to over this past year will be more than willing to do that. And maybe have some special guests up here and try to, you know, keep the channel as fresh as possible for 2021. So that is the plan, you know, going forward. I want to knock out, well, actually, let me answer a couple of chat questions first, and then I'm going to get to the next one from longtime fan Amato Gonzalez from 2011. And I know you might be here hanging out as well in the chat too, buddy, but I'll get to yours in a second. AJ, you rolled in with $5 more. I appreciate it. What was your reaction when Jake put the Cobra on Randy Savage? That was awful. I watched that live on TV. Now, they didn't, or did they? I'm trying to remember. I always sometimes get it confused with the Brutus Beefcake and Outlaw Ron Bass segment. I think they did the censored thing on the TV. I want to say there was the big red censored X on live TV when they were playing it, when the Cobra was like literally chewing on Randy Savage's arm, because I remember seeing the blood dripping down, but I'm not sure if I saw it actually bite him until years later when I saw the uncensored version, if I remember that right. But I cannot believe that, especially when it literally bit him like it was a real snake, a real bite, and had been devenomized and all that. And on the Jericho Cruise, Jake was there. Jake did a couple of shows. He did a Talk Is Jericho podcast, and he did a one-man show, kind of like a comedy act. And I can't remember which one, but on one of those, he talked about the snake on with Randy Savage, and how Randy said, you got to bite yourself first and all this shit. As a matter of fact, I've got another thing on my channel. Speaking of that cruise video, I have a big bonus video as well too that I put up a few months ago, utilizing all the footage from the cruise that I didn't include in the review, just raw footage, stories from podcasts, shit like that's an hour long. It's also on my channel, or you can go to the cruise video and you'll see the link in there to it. So check that out if you want to hear some of those stories, and he might talk about that very situation. But the visual of it, I just cannot believe what that must have felt like for Randy Savage just to have his arm chewed off by a snake. My God. All right, back to the email questions here. Like I said, Amato Gonzalez, you've been sending in questions for quite a while. I think you've said you've gotten questions answered since 2013, but you've been watching for about 10 years now, so I appreciate your support as always. And I I don't get into personal stuff. If somebody shares personal stuff, I don't reveal anything about it. But Amato did share some very personal information with me and said some very kind words. And I just want you let you know, Amato, that I appreciate it. And I still to this day, I have a whole folder in my email because I get them. I mean, I'm not a huge YouTuber, but I've gotten over the years, over 20 emails from people that have had serious bouts of depression, maybe even contemplated suicide. And they actually said that the commentary in the YouTube channel and the stuff we do here, it's like saved their life. And I'm always so blown away by that. I save every single one of them. So if you're one of those people that have ever sent something to me, I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm so glad that this was able to pull you out of that. I almost feel like unworthy of me being the reason that, you turn things around for yourself. But, the fact that I've gotten that message so many times now throughout the years, it almost makes it all worth it. I mean, hey, if 20 lives were saved, fuck yeah, man. So if you're ever struggling, just know you can always reach out. We're in the social media age. You can send out DMs and you can make comments and talk to anybody you want. And, we'll do our best to be here for you. So whenever I get those, and this was not what Amato's was about, it just reminded me of that. Whenever I get messages like that, I always make sure I save them, and sometimes I go back and read them and it's just, some of them are from, 5-6 years ago now, but they're there and I'm almost just mind blown. I'm mind blown that those messages come in, and I'm mind blown that I've had that effect on one person, much less 20. And I'm sure that, other YouTubers and podcasters that do what I do that are much bigger than me have gotten much more of these messages. But the fact that things like this can help keep you centered, I'm very happy that we're able to do that. And I kind of have the same thing. Like I don't watch, I watch my own, YouTube stuff, non-wrestling related. It's kind of like my escape or my relaxing time to, watch just random things on YouTube that really, I kind of look forward to that sometimes, just kind of coming home. I got no editing to do and I can just sit back and relax and, catch up on some of the peaceful, therapeutic kickback type of stuff that I like to watch that, help keeps me together, so I can relate to that a little bit. But just not as far as, the depression and the suicide and stuff like that. So I appreciate anybody that's ever sent me a message like that. And I'm glad that I could be there for you. You know what I mean? But like I said, that's not what Amato's was about, but based on some of the nice and kind words that you shared with me, reminded me of that. And I wanted to at least say thank you out there to everybody that's ever sent me anything like that. But your question is, this is a good one too. What backstage argument or backstage fight would you want to be a fly on the wall for? You said yours would be CM Punk talking to Triple H or Vince, or maybe when Booker T smacked around Batista. Is that what happened? I can't remember what happened, or I don't recall with the Booker T and Batista fight. Did Booker T whoop his ass? I don't even remember who won that fight. I bet the funniest one was the Big Show and Khali fight. That cracked me up. I wasn't sure who got the better of the fight with Booker T and Batista. I wouldn't fuck with Booker T no matter how big I was. Jesus. But yeah, the CM Punk and Triple H and Vince one might have been good. For me, I'd want to be a fly on the wall when Brett punched Vince after the screw job. I mean, the cameras were there, wrestling with shadows all the way up until they entered the locker room, and then Brett's like, cut it off, and and then he nailed him or whatever. So that one for sure. Also, maybe I'd want to be a fly on the wall when Nails choked out Vince. I think all these are Vince related. It's always somebody beating the shit out of Vince. When Nails choked out Vince McMahon and got fired, that was great. I would have loved to be there for that, to see what that was like. Much like the Brett punch. I want to see who was in the locker room. I know Austin was there, Bulldog, Shane, and the Stooges, and Patterson, Briscoe. There were guys there. But I want to see like the entire reaction. I want to like just be up on the ceiling watching all this happen. Who jumped on Brett? Who pulled him apart? How far did it get? Things like that. And what Vince looked like when he fucking hit the ground by him being drilled by Bret Hart right in the fucking face. So I would very much like to see that for myself and with my own eyes. I'd also like to be a fly on the wall during some wrestlers' courts. Some of those are pretty interesting. Also the Goldberg and Jericho confrontation, where Jericho kind of shut him down, put him in a front face lock, and kind of punked Goldberg in front of everybody, which is just a heartwarming story. I would love to see Matt Riddle do the same thing. Goldberg thinks he's such a tough guy. He would get his fucking ass kicked by somebody like Riddle. But yet he just thinks he's so badass. He believes his own bullshit. I'm like, dude, you're 50. Yeah, you're in great shape. Yeah, you could kill me, but I'm not sure you could kill a trained fighter or somebody with like legit wrestling experience like a Jericho or a Bret Hart. I mean, if Bret Hart and Goldberg would have scuffled in WCW, Bret would have whooped his ass. I have no doubt about it. So I would like to be there for that, just to see what that was like. And also the Khali and Big Show fight just for comedy purposes. The other stuff would be really intense and nail biting. And I'd be fucking shoving popcorn in my mouth watching this stuff. But Show and Khali, I'd be laughing my ass off, probably having a beer. And also, I wouldn't mind being a fly on the overhead compartment in the plane ride from hell. That would have been really interesting to see some of the crazy shit that went on there. The fucking Michael Hayes' ponytail getting cut off, and naked Ric Flair, and Brock Lesnar versus Vince McMahon, and Goldust singing, and Scott Hall having a seizure. Oh my God, that would have been interesting. So I'd go with those, Amato. You also have another one. Another question in regards to WWE dropping pushes or storylines. What storyline do you hate the most that WWE dropped, or just making it a shit show since we know they don't know what they're doing to begin with? You guys are going to have to help me there. Some of the began storylines that have been dropped. I'd probably say the Hacker, even though they kind of picked that back up. Back in the day, GTV, they never paid off, at least back in the day. In recent times, I think they really dropped the ball with Otis and Mandy and all that. I think it was off to a great start. Became one of the best things they were doing across all three of their shows. And what do they do when they find something that works? Fuck it up. They fuck that to hell. So those in recent memory would be the top ones. Otherwise, you guys can hook me up with your recommendations on some of the worst dropped angles that they've done in recent memory. And you can probably come up with a lot better ones than I can. Martin Tomlinson, it's good to hear from you as well. Again, my friend, you asked, what is my favorite pay-per-view from 1980 to 2020? Pay-per-views really weren't around in 80 yet. As a matter of fact, the first pay-per-view I ever watched wasn't until 88 at WrestleMania 4. Everything prior to that was closed circuit. And Survivor Series 87, I wasn't able to watch because I almost got killed in a bike accident. So I was in a hospital. But from the beginning all the way up until now, 2020, it's only one, my man. Probably WrestleMania 3, but an actual pay-per-view that I bought and watched, probably WrestleMania 17. That was such a crazy time. I just watched the buyout live on Raw, the simulcast, still have both shows in their entirety recorded off of live TV from that night. And just riding off the high of holy shit, there's only one company now. And WrestleMania 17 is coming up, and it's huge, and it's in a dome, and it's rocking Austin, and now WCW guys are going to be there. There's a gimmick battle royal. Bobby Heenan's coming back. Like, it was just so much to take in. WrestleMania 17 probably was my favorite one to sit down and watch. I had a big 50-inch old school TV that was on wheels, and you'd wheel around and shit. I've showed pictures of that on social media and stuff before. Those were the days. So I'd probably go WrestleMania 17. But I can still find lots and lots of candidates other than that one. SummerSlam 90 comes to mind. A lot of good pay-per-views that I watch live. Gabriel Folker, man, you are a longtime listener for 10 years as well, and you've given me your Twitter handle at ibuckets97. It's lowercase I, buckets97. So I went over to Twitter and checked you out, and dude, you're from Wilmington, North Carolina. That's where I used to live. I lived there for a long time. Says that you're a UNCW Seahawk. I lived over there at the Quads. I lived at College Green. I lived at Clear Run. I lived around campus there a lot for like 2 or 3 years before moving to Wrightsville Beach. I also lived in Porter's Neck for a little while in that area and stuff. So I hope you're enjoying Wilmington. I spent a lot of years there, you know, bartending and waiting tables and managing in restaurants and stuff. And it's a great town, and I miss it a lot. So enjoy the beach, and cool to hear from somebody from my old stomping grounds. But your question is my thoughts on Herb Abrams and his UWF promotion back in the early 90s. Have you ever watched a UWF television show or a pay-per-view or traded any tapes? Did you ever see it rivaling the WWF with them honing in on WWF's talent, such as Andre Paul Orndorff, etc.? No, I never took it seriously. I didn't see any of it until years later. Never got any in a tape trade, but since have been able to see a lot on the internet. And that was really it. I remember it sort of, but I don't remember catching any of it on TV. But I remember seeing it in magazines a lot, but I never really took it that seriously, even though they had some sizable people there. Even Foley passed through there and stuff, and they used a lot of former 80s WWF talent. Herb Abrams, of course, they did a whole Dark Side of the Ring on him. He's completely batshit insane, and he was really believed that they could rival WWF, but I just don't think they could have. It just was shit. It just wasn't good. So I never thought they had a chance to compete, and I never really had that much interest in it. Like I said, I think the only thing I ever saw from them was magazines, because I was magazine crazy. That's another video I have on my channel, my entire magazine collection. is up on my channel. Just search magazines. It'll pop right up. A little 4-minute video compilation. And so I would buy the magazines every, week at the newsstands, and I'd thumb through them, and I'd read a little bit about it there and see some pictures. But other than that, wasn't really that aware. I knew of Herb Abrams and his problems, and I knew how he died way before the Dark Side of the Ring episode came out. But when that did, that was kind of funny to watch and just hear that whole story that I'd never really heard in its entirety before. So interesting. Caleb from Seattle, Washington writes in, did WWE drop the ball with Kerry Von Erich? Not really. I kind of. I mean, Kerry had a lot of demons, of course. He had a lot of problems. By the time he got into WWE, he was heavily addicted to drugs. Tragedy had already started to strike the Von Erich family. He was wrestling with half a foot due to the accident that he got in. And like I said, he just had some demons. But had he been in a better spot in his life, I think they could have really capitalized on him because he had such a great look. I mean, he was chiseled out of granite. He looked physically a lot like the Ultimate Warrior. And the Warrior and Hellwig was there, and WCW was the Dingo Warrior. Him and Kerry had already had kind of a history. So when Von Erich got to the WWE, had things gone better for him, and they smashed him over. He beat Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam 1990, like 10 days after walking in the door for the Intercontinental title. So I thought right there, he was going to be like the new Warrior, and Warrior had moved into the position of being the new Hogan. And I thought had things gone properly for them, that they could have potentially even done like a Kerry Von Erich or Texas Tornado Ultimate Warrior WrestleMania match, just like they did with Hogan and Warrior, like WrestleMania 6. They could have done that again with Kerry and Warrior. Warrior could have gone into 7 as champion, taking on Intercontinental champion Kerry Von Erich in a babyface match. But by the time that got there, Kerry was already out the door, and 1 year later, he would commit suicide. So he was just not in a good place. But I think he had the look, he had the charisma, he had the body, he had everything Vince would want, and he had the history with the Ultimate Warrior, and they could have done a lot more with them, and Kerry was the modern day Warrior. He could have faced the Ultimate Warrior. And they had a Survivor. I remember they had the Survivor Series team with all the Warriors. It was Kerry, it was Ultimate Warrior, and it was the Road Warriors. But it was, unfortunately, it was Ultimate Warrior, LOD, and Texas Tornado. But really, I saw a team of Warriors, and that was one of the best looking teams, Survivor Series teams they've ever had in the company. So I feel like not enough was done with Kerry, but I think that was every bit as much, if not more so, his own doing than it was WWE. But yeah, it's a shame looking back and thinking about it, how much could have been, or how much potential they had together. Hey, there's a good suggestion for War Games faction, Evolution. Didn't even think about Evolution. They'd be great. Oh my God, they'd be great. Yeah, I should have mentioned them. The Dudley family. That's not bad either. I like that. Alex Wright dance. I love that. Oh, Barry, I probably got an opinion on that. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else here. Booker won that fight. How bad was it? Did he just whoop his ass? Maybe is that why Batista got into MMA? Maybe to try to toughen himself up or something? Yeah, I mean, Booker's a tough bastard, though. I mean, he'd probably kick anybody's ass in the locker room. Oh, yeah, Dre, the Sid incident. I don't know if I'd want to be a fly on the wall there. I might barf. There was a lot of blood. That was a gruesome, well, which Sid incident are you talking about? Are you talking about the scissor fight with Arn, or are you talking about him snapping his leg in half on Thunder? Either way, that sucked. Oh, and that one's a good one too, Tigerzilla, the Dynamite Kid and Jacques Rougeau one. I hear that story so many times, and you always hear, like, you hear what an asshole Dynamite was and how, what a bully he was. I mean, part of me's like, yeah, it's a chicken shit thing to do what Rougeau did, but I kind of like it when bullies get what's coming to them as well. But hearing that story is just, I hate anything to do with teeth because I had all my teeth knocked out once. And just, hearing Dynamite getting punched in the mouth and spitting out his teeth, but not even going completely down, just like going down to one knee. He's tough as a motherfucker. But Jacques did what he had to do, I guess, That's such a crazy story, too. My God. Yeah, Jericho and Brock had a little scuffle in 2016. I'm not sure if that turned out to be an actual scuffle. I thought maybe it was a pull apart and some words were exchanged. I know Eddie and Angle got in a fight one time. Oh, yeah, the Hummer. Yeah, we never found out who was in the Hummer, did we? And Kofi's reign. Yeah, they dropped the ball there a bit. I mean, I'm fine with them passing it to Brock, but could Kofi get a punch in or a kick in? I was there. I was live for that match to watch Brock beat him at Staples Center like that. It was pretty shocking. I knew Brock was going to beat him. I never thought for once that Kofi would retain, but can you hit him with one trouble in paradise or something before you just pick him up and F5 him and pin him? But whatever. At least he got the belt. That's something. But my God, what a way to end it, you know? Yeah, dropping the... Well, Stone Cold, they didn't really drop the two-man power trip. The two-man power trip ended because Triple H got hurt. However, even though Triple H did tear his quad in the match with Benoit and Jericho, I think they were wrapping it up anyway. You could tell. There was a miscommunication in the match. Triple H had lost his title, but I think Austin was still champ, right? Yeah, Triple H has lost his title, but Austin still had his. Yeah, and there was back-to-back nights too. I think Triple H lost the IC the night before to Kane. And then the next night, I think it was in San Jose, on Raw, they did the tag match, tore his quad, lost the tag team titles, and he went from having 2 belts to no belts to be on the shelf for 9 months. Had he stayed healthy, they probably would have broke him up right there and not done it. So I guess even if Triple H didn't get hurt, I guess you're right. I think they probably would have dropped it anyway and could have ran with it longer. I like that. I like Vince between both of those guys. I thought it was awesome. Let's see who's next. Barry. Thanks again, man, for the $2. What did you think of Wolfpack Sting at the time? Didn't like it. I would have been fine with Sting joining the NWO, growing his hair long, painting his face red, being charismatic, because that's who Surfer Sting was. But after 18 months or whatever it was in the rafters, not saying a word, being a changed man, being so, traumatized and affected by the fans, thinking you joined the NWO and you're so offended because you would never do that in a million years. I would never join the NWO. And then he turns around and joins the NWO. What the fuck were you doing up there for 18 months then? If you're just going to come back and then just a few months later, when did he join the Wolfpack? In 98? So he did that shit for like 18 months, however long it was. I can't remember the exact amount of months, but I swear it was like the end of the summer in 96 when all that happened. And then he didn't wrestle until Starrcade 97. So it was way over a year. And spent all that time doing that only to come back and then join the NWO. So I thought storyline wise, it didn't make any sense at all for him to do that. And, but judging that alone and just who he was in the NWO, I was cool with him talking a little bit more on the mic because Sting is not a bad talker. And we had to go over a year without him saying a goddamn word. So the fact that he was back to speaking on the mic again, I was all for. The fact that he was doing the big Sting scream and he was, back to being a little charismatic, nothing against that. But I thought it was silly that he joined the NWO after everything that he had done up until that point. It's just weird. And we've seen a lot of examples of that in WWE too, with guys feuding and then just teaming up all of a sudden. What the fuck? The craziest one was probably the Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H 2-man power trip because how did all that come about? Remember when Triple H was the one behind Rikishi? Triple H was the one who tried to murder Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Stone Cold murdered Triple H as revenge at Survivor Series when he dropped the car off the forklift. And then they had that spectacular match in, was it Vegas? Where it was like the 3 stages of hell or whatever, and Triple H beat him clean going into WrestleMania 17. That was crazy. Then Austin turned heel, teamed up with Triple H, and then they were a unit. And that's really weird considering what they had just gone through. If somebody tries to kill me, I'm not sure if I can be BFFs with them 4 months later. I'm going to have to think about it. So probably not. So to me, it's similar to the Sting situation where it just didn't make no damn sense. But anyway, Chris, thank you for $5 more and for being here. I respect people who want to get into MMA, but I trained with some guys who trained jiu-jitsu with Batista, and they said he wasn't too skilled at it. I don't even remember. I don't remember seeing any of his fights and stuff. Yeah, and Batista was a bit older by the time he got into wrestling anyway, and he never really was the most athletic guy, even when he was younger, because he didn't get into the company until like 30s or something like that. But Brock was just so much better. He was 10 times better from an athletic standpoint and what he could do in the ring and shit like that. He just had a much better look and was a better athlete and a better fighter. So I can kind of believe that just based on how Batista moves around and stuff. I can believe that totally. Back to the emails. I got a few more I want to knock out. Oh yeah, this one's good from Michael Tong from Bournemouth, England. Who, in your opinion, has had the best repackaging of all time? A few of your favorites are Dustin Runnels to Goldust, Isaac Yankem to Kane, and Bray Wyatt to The Fiend. Those might be the top 3 for me too. I got to think. I didn't write down any answers here. I'm trying to do this on the fly. The best repackaging. Yeah, Glenn Jacobs deserves to be in there. Poor guy's been repackaged a couple of times. Help me out, guys. Repackages. I mean, somebody like Roman really doesn't count. I mean, coming back as a completely different character than who you were before. Damn, I can't think of any. I'm going to have to take your suggestions here. You guys can help me guide me through that. And here's one I like. I mentioned this earlier on when we were talking about Monday Night Raw. You also asked me if I thought, what are your thoughts on the January 4th Raw that The Fiend could return in Mandible Claw IRS? Probably very unlikely, but a very cool visual. I love that idea. I talked about that earlier. If he's going to come back next week, he's in a perfect position to take out his dad. But I think when we see him for the first time, it's got to be with Randy Orton, not with fucking IRS. But, you know, if he shows up first against Randy Orton and then maybe IRS is backstage later and he attacks him and puts down his dad, maybe something like that can happen. But now it does set that possibility up that maybe that would happen. Might just be cool to see Bo Dallas get involved. Did Bo Dallas get released with everybody else in April? I don't think he did. I think he's still around. He might not be, but it'd be cool to see maybe Dallas get involved somewhere in this too. I think there's room for him. They wanted to bring him in. Samantha from Corpus Christi, Texas. I talked about you earlier on. You asked me a crazy question. I just like the difficultness of this. Who do you think was the better wrestler, Owen Hart or Eddie Guerrero? Jesus jumping Christ, man. How the hell am I supposed to pick that? I'm going to go Eddie. Oh, I don't want to. I'm going to go Eddie. I mean, what Owen lacked in athleticism compared to Eddie, you know, because they were both very athletic. Owen was very agile, very smooth, could do some great things in there. But Eddie was just a little bit more on the agile side than Owen. Even though they were both high flyers, I think Eddie was a little bit better. But what Owen lacked there, I think he made up for with his wrestling style, a little bit of a rougher style. He trained in the dungeon with all of his brothers and his dad. He's tough as nails. He knows how to actually wrestle and ground and pound you. In addition to being a high flyer, where Guerrero is more, you know, of a lucha style and stuff. But overall, Eddie, you know, I'm gonna give him the nod just by a hair because I think some of his other offense tended to look better than Owen. Like I said, Owen could glide and move around that ring. He understood. He had great psychology, things like that. But when it comes to like the strikes, the kicks, the punches, and things like that, I think Eddie's was a tad bit crisper than Owen's. Owen didn't have a good right hand. Neither did Lex Luger. Owen didn't have a great right hand. Eddie kind of did. And he was just a little more crisper, a little bit more intense, a little dynamite kid, Benoit-like in his offense and stuff. So, and just a slightly more exciting to watch. Plus, you know, he beat Brock and won the title and, you know, and had a little bit better of a run on top than Owen got a chance to have. And even though I love Owen to death, you know, I might go Eddie on that one. But that is a extremely difficult question and one that was not easy to answer at all. Clyde Wendell Slater, good to hear from you again, man, as well. Clyde Wendell Slater III, I should say. Your question is regarding the pure violent matches, not necessarily TLC or hardcore, but just two men ripping each other apart in the ring. I watched Walter versus Dragunov match a month ago, and I was thoroughly pleased with the pure savagery that was on display. I talked about that match earlier too. My jaw still hurts. My neck still hurts from that whole thing. Is there a match you've witnessed in person or on television that you can remember where two wrestlers laid into each other in similar fashion? Just a brutal match like that on television? Yes, not to that degree, but some of them that are similar. I'm trying to remember some random ones. I remember Randy Orton and CM Punk at WrestleMania 27 being specifically brutal for some reason. Not as brutal as what they did, but I just remember them just beating and hitting the shit out of each other. I think Brock and CM Punk at SummerSlam that year was kind of similar. Again, you guys can help me. To that level of a Walter and Dragunov, just guys just beating the fuck. I'd probably have to look to NXT. They've had some of those really, really hard-hitting matches there. Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, guys like that. And again, you guys got to help me out here. Rocky Maivia to The Rock, Hogan to Hollywood Hogan are both good ones. I'd say Rocky to Rock is better because Hogan was already over. He went from an over character to another over character. Rocky was getting Rocky Die chants, and he transformed into The Rock and became a pretty decent-sized television star, if I had to say so myself. Ringmaster to Stone Cold, excellent. Chavo to Kerr when White was pretty funny. Cena, again, bland jobber to Dr. Thugonomics. Sting Surfer to Crow. Jericho's Painmaker, maybe. Yeah, but Husky Harris to Bray Wyatt is better than Bray Wyatt to The Fiend. So technically, he's done it twice. He went from Husky to Bray and Bray to The Fiend, and now The Fiend is something else. He's about to be repackaged again. All those are good. Way better than what I could come up with. So, Clyde, thank these guys. They came up with some good ones. Coffee and Dunn at Blackpool. I did see that one. Godfather to Goodfather. Oz to Diesel. That's another good one as well. AJ Daniels popping in with $5 more on the super chat. If you could book a 5 versus 5 versus 5 elimination tag match at Survivor Series of WWF, WCW, and ECW, who would be on the teams? Jesus Christ, man. Any year, let's go Attitude Era then. So fucking WWE, Austin, Rock, Taker, Triple H, and one more. Austin, Rock, Taker, Triple H, Angle. On WCW's team, we'll go Goldberg, Sting. Got to put Flair on there. Hogan. Giant. Was that 5? ECW, Raven, Rob Van Dam, Terry Funk. Can I include Terry Funk? Fuck it, I am. He could go on all 3 of those teams. Let's go Rob Van Dam, Terry Funk, Raven, and the Dudleys. I guess. I got to put some thought into that one. Could probably make the matchups a little bit better. What about Mark to Taker? How Wheezy? Kind of, but again, it wasn't well, I guess it was a repack. I'm trying to think in the same company. If you jump from another company, I don't know if you're really being repackaged because he hasn't been there yet. He's only being in WWE. He was only packaged. He wasn't repackaged. So maybe that one doesn't count. But yeah, he came in the door right away as Undertaker and has been huge ever since. Kind of the same thing with Oz and Diesel. You know, Diesel isn't a repackage. Diesel's a package. So just one big ass package. Favorite current NXT superstar and why? Oh, God, right now. I'd probably go like Karrion Kross just because he's new, he's hot, he's over. Great presentation, great music. Loved him beating Keith Lee. I just hated that he got taken off of him so quick. But other than him, Cole, even O'Reilly, Io Shirai, Ripley, Timothy Thatcher is another one on the list. I like him too. Yeah, Cactus Jack to Mankind, but again, not really a repackage. But hell, he got packaged a couple. You know, he got packaged from Mankind to Dude to Cactus in WWE. I don't know about the most overrated match of all time. I'd have to give that some thought. You guys can shout out nominees because I can't even think about that at the moment. Oh, yeah, I wanted to answer this one from Arthur Jones earlier. I knew I was missing one more. Let me knock out Arthur Jones here, who sent an email. Who would win in a War Games match, Undisputed Era versus the 4 Horsemen? But you've even given me the Horsemen members in this too. Flair, Wyndham, Anderson, and Blanchard. To me, that's the best version of the Horsemen that you could come up with. So I'm going Horsemen. More, though. Undisputed Era, they both have equal experience in the War Games, but fucking Flair, man. Flair. Yeah, I'm going Horseman. But in reality, Undisputed Era might give them a run for their money. Flair don't want none of Kyle O'Reilly. That's for sure. That's for sure. So yeah, I might go Horseman on that, but not by much. Not by much. That pretty much does it for the email questions. I want to get out of here pretty soon. I thought this would be a 4-hour stream, and that's about what it's been. So we'll hang out here a little bit longer in the chat, and then I'll be getting out of here. By the way, in terms of the giveaway, in terms of the largest super chat, there might be a few that are tied for the largest one. So I'm going to be drawing your name, by the way. And I'll put the winners up on YouTube tomorrow or Wednesday to let you know who won that. And then if you see that message, If I know who you are and I've got your like Twitter or something, I'll just DM you straight out. But if I don't know who you are and you see that post, just email me your info, shirt size, and address once I post the winner. Who has the best spear from Wesley? Edge, Roman, Goldberg, or Rhino? Goldberg. I've answered the favorite pay-per-view of all time a couple times. I don't really have one. I'd probably say like WrestleMania 17 or something. I'd have to do like a top 10 because I have a lot of great memories of like early pay-per-views that I watched, like Survivor Series 88, SummerSlam 90, SummerSlam 91 for that matter, WrestleMania 10, you know, so many great pay-per-views that I watched in the 80s and 90s and I watched live that I have fond memories of. So that might be a fun top 10. We did the top 10 tag teams on Saturday. That might be a fun future episode to do. Okay, thank you for that, Tiger. No problem. I'll keep you out. I reluctantly agree with AJ Daniels on Brett and Shawn Iron Man match. WrestleMania 12 is an overrated match. I love that match, but I kind of agree. It took place right up north in Anaheim. This match, I got a piece of the ring right here. Iron Man match, WrestleMania 12. I've had this thing fucking forever, man. But it is cool to have a piece of history there. It was a good night. It was a good night for Shawn, as you can see, winning the title and everything. But I do agree, it was a great match, absolutely a great match. But in terms of like going down as one of the best ever, it was just a really good long match with two great athletes that were able to hold their own, keep the match interesting. And that's it. A lot of people consider the Triple H and Rock Iron Man match better because we had more finishes, and that was the problem with this one. Is you went an hour without a finish. If you would have gotten a few, then it might have lit the excitement level up a little bit more, especially during the mid part of the match. It got cooking at the end when you realize it's 0-0 and there's 2 minutes left. Fans are starting to freak out, but up until then, it felt a little slow going. So in terms of it being overrated, I'd agree, even though I love the match. And Rock and Triple H made things extremely interesting. When Undertaker came back, and that match was good. That match was really good, with a photo finish at the end too. So, oh yeah, Zane, I got your email. You're on there. You're addressed and ready to go. Just got to drop shit off at the post office. I was going to go before the end of the year. Thought I was going to go today, but since I'm doing the 2 giveaways, I'm going to go probably either tomorrow or Thursday on the 31st and drop them in, but they're coming. Devlin's got one coming too. Oh man, yeah, Vincente, that would have been great too. If Shawn and Brock were in the invasion angle, what would their roles have been? Brock wasn't there yet, so I don't know what his role would have been. Shawn, I think, would have been on the side of WWE unless you had Hall and Nash involved in the invasion. That would have been a cool dynamic. If Shawn never got injured, they did the buyout, the invasion, and everybody came over in the invasion. It wasn't the abridged version of the Cliff's Notes version of WCW. It was the whole shebang, and you had Hall and Nash there too. Would have been interesting to see Shawn and Triple H, for that matter, on the opposite sides of their buddies, and if there would have been some crossover there. I think WWE probably, it would have been hard for them to resist doing Razor and Diesel again with them if they would have came in at that time. When they came in with the NWO, it was a totally different thing, but they just came in as Hall and Nash in the invasion. They might have had them jump and become Razor and Diesel. I think it would have been cool if they did that. I think it would have been absolutely cool. You do. You think Michaels and Angle at WrestleMania 21 is a tad bit overrated? I kind of don't. I love that match, and I do like the Vengeance match too. They were both great. Hell, I like their Iron Man match on Raw. I reviewed that too, thanks to Barry. Raw Homecoming 2005. I think it was Shawn and Kurt, half an hour Iron Man match or something like that. That was another good one. All their matches were good. Their feud was bright spot in 2005. Big bright spot. I guess maybe you can make a case for it to be overrated, but I thought it was a great WrestleMania match. Such a perfect match to have on that card. There was a lot of good matches on the card that night. But yeah, and their Vengeance one was good too. Yeah, I don't think Rock and Hogan is overrated. I don't think anybody considers the match good. That's the thing. You'd have to say the match was great Like the in-ring match was great for it to be overrated. The match, the moment, the spectacle, the WrestleMania, the backdrop, the fans, all of that, none of that experience to me was underrated at all. And I don't think fans even really consider the match in the ring. It's kind of like Hogan and Andre. You know, the match is one of the best matches of all time, but in the ring, if you're judging the match, it's shit. It's only good at the end with the body slam and stuff. Everything else is, you know, like watching flies fuck, but it got good at the end and it gave us the big moment and, you know, something we'll never forget. And Hogan and Rock is a lot like that. Same thing. Yeah, how easy I will. I haven't done a Q&A in a while. See if we can get me up to 200 likes, and then I'll probably bust out of here. It's been a really, really fun 4 hours doing this with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a long, long stream here. If you're just tuning in for any reason, if you go all the way back to the beginning, you'll hear a big opening tribute to Brodie Lee and his passing, and then we got into tonight's Monday Night Raw review. We talked about some of the wrestling deaths that we've seen throughout the year of 2020, and then I've been spending the last hour or two just knocking out a bunch of questions, one after the other here, about wrestling stuff. It's been fun. Favorite AWA wrestler growing up? Yours was Jerry Blackwell. Mine was probably Bockwinkel, because I always liked him. Or, God, I'm trying to think of just specifically AWA guys. I remember liking Martel when he was there too, but he wasn't there long. But he was champion. It's all heels. Mad Dog Vachon was the same thing. Baron Von Raschke. I liked all those guys. They were characters to me. They didn't have a super over babyface until Hogan got there. I guess I'd probably say Billy Robinson or Ray Stevens or something. Probably one of them, because they were so good. They're still fun to watch their matches now, even in 2020. Roadie to the Road Dog is a good. That's not really a repackage. That's an evolution. He just kind of morphed into that. Hell, he went from Roadie to Double J to Road Dog, actually. So he got repackaged a couple of times. Almost is going back to the PC. Who's that? Is that some sort of story that's out? Rock versus Cena at Mania 21, WrestleMania goes Hollywood would have been awesome. It would have. Not sure if Cena was quite ready yet, but maybe the next year at 22. But then they're in Chicago, not LA, so different. Favorite female wrestler of all time has always been Trish Stratus, hands down. I've always thought she was great. That may change in time now that we've entered into a whole different world of women's wrestling and things have improved so dramatically. I'm starting to build more favorites now. I like a lot of the women. I like Ripley. I like Asuka. I like Charlotte. I like Bailey. I like Sasha. There's a lot of women that I adore now. So ask me again in 10 years, Trish might get bumped. But as of right now, it's still Trish. Still Trish. Hell in the Cell match, I might go Shawn and Taker. The first one was good. I also liked Taker and Brock. You got to put 98 and Hell in the Cell with Mankind on there as well. Triple H and Jericho, I remember being pretty good. Usos and New Day was fabulous, even though it was in like the new era of Hell in the Cell matches, and most of those I don't like. Triple H and Batista, I think, was also good. My least favorite one was one that I saw live, or one of my least favorite ones was one that I saw live, WrestleMania 15. Taker, Boss Man, and they murdered poor Big Boss Man at the end. Fucking gnarly, man. A waste of a match for Undertaker. So random. Alyssa Stansberry, why Seth Rollins come back too soon? Should come back at Royal Rumble. WrestleMania time. Just lift, need, do more 2021. So you don't want him to come back now. I think he's advertised to kind of come back. I don't think he's been gone long enough to need to like make a big grand return in the Rumble. It's not like we're all going to be so happy to see him. He's been gone for a few weeks. And I said that prior to Becky having the baby. I was like, when she has the baby, he's not going to be gone for like 4 months. They're going to give him some time off to go be with his kid, but you got to get back to work. I've worked alongside many people who've had kids before. Yeah, they take a few days off, maybe a week, maybe 2, to be home with the wife and the new baby and stuff, but you got to get back to work. You didn't have the baby. The wife did. So I think he's there for support and to be there. New dad. We all congratulate him, but I wasn't expecting him to take like 2-3 months off or anything. I thought it was just be a few weeks. And that's pretty much all it's been. So he left, what, after Survivor Series? And I said it was going to be about a month. I said he'll probably be back right at the beginning of 2021, and he is. So debut of Kane in 97 versus Goldberg 98. Kane easily. Goldberg, they didn't know what they had with him. Kane, the whole thing was so epic with the confrontation with Taker and coming out and debuting and ripping the cage door off. Goldberg, they just threw in the ring with Hugh Morris and he won. And it was kind of like shocking, but it wasn't like that huge of a deal. It took a while. It took a few weeks for Goldberg to really get noticed and then start mowing down people. Then the U.S. title run, then the match with Hogan. He built to that, where Kane came on the scene huge immediately. He was immediately a big deal as soon as he got there. Goldberg took a few weeks. So who was in that one, Barry? Who was in Unforgiven 2006 or 2006? I don't even know what month that would have been in. A lot of times Unforgiven was always September, but in 06, who the fuck knows? Who was champion around that time? Cena. Who was the other champion? Ray, Batista. I don't even know. Who the fuck was in the cell match? I have no clue. Hey, Mab, thanks for the $5 Canadian. Good to see you here as well. Imagine Ronda returns 29 in the Rumble. Becky comes out at 30. That would be great. That would be super great. I'd love that. I'm curious about Ronda. I don't know if she'll ever be back or not. I think she is. She's still got some time on her deal and stuff, but she might be checked out of wrestling. Oh, thank you for the late Chili's money hashtag. Thank you for that, Mab. DX versus the McMahons and Big Show. Oh my God, that's who it was in 2006. Barry, you are high as hell. Is that the one where they stuck Vince's face in Big Show's ass or something? It sounds like something they do around 06. Yeah, that's your favorite one. I don't even remember that. I just remember the spot with Vince's face going in Big Show's ass. Loved Owen and Yokozuna as a tag team. As a matter of fact, at WrestleMania 11, I knew it was going to be Yoko. Or I guess I shouldn't say I knew, I guessed. Owen was going to have a mystery partner against the Smoking Guns for the titles. And I was like, it's Yoko. Yoko had been off TV for a while. I couldn't think of anybody else for them to bring in with Owen. And when it turned out to be Yoko, I was like, I knew it. I knew it was going to be Yoko, and they won. AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch. Becky. I like AJ, but Becky. Yeah, Triple H, Batista. All right, Barry, I'll trust you. I'll check it out. Throw it up on the TV one of these days. Favorite pay-per-view from the year 2000. I have a lot from that year. My God. There were some bad ones, though. 2000 had a shitty WrestleMania. I was at SummerSlam 2000, so I might say that one. I was there. I got a review of that as well. Did a 20th anniversary review this past August. It's on my channel right now. So go check it out. I'd probably say SummerSlam 2000 because I was there and had great seats, but I also liked Backlash. I also liked Judgment Day. The Backlash match was great when Rock won the title. That's what should have happened at WrestleMania. Judgment Day was badass with the Iron Man match. Fully Loaded was good, if I remember right. Yeah, that was a really good pay-per-view because that was the year that Angle, Benoit, and Jericho all got matches. Man, there were some good pay-per-views that year. Fully Loaded 2000's on the list too. That was phenomenal. After WrestleMania, they went on a string of, let's say, 1, 2. What happened at King of the Ring 2000? Was that any good? Probably wasn't bad. So they at least had 4 or 5 out of 6 pay-per-views that were really good in 2000. So I'm partial to SummerSlam because I was there. I saw poor Shane McMahon fall 28 stories to his demise. So sad. And Armageddon, that's right. 6-man Hell in the Cell was amazing. Kurt Angle escaping with his chicken shit little life. Rikishi, back bump off the cage into a truck. Can't make this shit up, man. You know? Man. All right. Well, I think gonna wrap it up. Backlash 2000 was on your birthday. Like that's the day you were born? Yeah, Triple H was on fire in 2000. And he was on fire at a good time. I mean, Mick Foley had just retired, but Rock was on the map. Austin was coming back. Taker came back. That was a crazy year. I missed 2000. I remember it fondly. I remember it all fondly. So Anyway, it is midnight for me here on the West Coast. So if you're on the East Coast, it is 3 a.m. You are probably tired. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now. I want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight. I really appreciate it. I was looking forward to doing this stream. I knew we'd have a good time despite everything, despite the horrific tragedy and passing of Brodie Lee. I wanted to do my best to at least come up here and have a good time and try to tribute him at the same time and make it a very bittersweet, fun podcast, and I think that's what it was. So I want to thank you guys for another amazing year of support. Things just keep getting better on this channel. You guys continue to get more loyal and more awesome, and I really enjoy our times together, and we are wrapping up and closing the book on yet another year here on YouTube. It just keeps going and going, and I think this is a year we'd all like to forget, and hopefully 2021 will be much better, much more fun, and much more enjoyable from a wrestling fan's perspective and from the perspective of life, because things have not been very good with the COVID stuff, and hopefully we can all start coming out on the other side of that in 2021, and we'll all get through it together. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate everything. How Wheezy, the rest of you, Mike Witt and Randy and AJ, everybody that donated tonight. Don't forget, keep an eye on my YouTube channel the next day or two. I'll post the winners of the t-shirts on there, and I'll get up with you about your addresses and t-shirt sizes. And until then, you're not going to see me until this coming Saturday, which will be January 2nd. And that will be the next time I'm up. Other than that, this is the last video of 2020. And I think we had a good time doing it. So thanks again, guys. Take care. Happy New Year. Have a great, healthy, and safe New Year. Be safe. Don't go anywhere if you're in lockdown, or, or if you do, be careful. Don't drive, and all that good stuff. And just have a safe one, and turn up in 2021. Happy, safe, and alive. That's all I ask for. You guys take care. I will see you this Saturday in 2021. Be good. Peace.